Good evening. Good evening, everybody. If I could have all board members come up to the front and find their chair. The Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District Board of Trustees is now convened in a regular board meeting on Thursday, January 12th, 2023, in the boardroom of the Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District Instructional Support Center located at 10300 Jones Road, Houston, Texas, at 6 p.m. I want to welcome the members of our audience and our television viewers to this meeting of the Board of Trustees. As the Cypress-Fairbanks Board of Trustees, we are here to set goals, listen to reports, approve budgets, contracts, personnel appointments, and make policy for the district. It is not the role of the board to make day-to-day operational decisions. The management and day-to-day operations of the district are the responsibility of the superintendent. We have policies and procedures in place to resolve concerns and issues. This is a public meeting of the Board of Trustees, not a meeting of the public. That means that when we have the board meeting, we cannot have interaction between the public and the board members. We do have specific areas where patrons, if they've signed up, may in fact speak. I'll go back over that. This is a public meeting of the Board of Trustees, not a meeting of the public. The meeting is open to all who wish to attend and hear the matters discussed. Audience members may not participate in the meeting outside the designated agenda items for citizen participation or public comment. Disruption of the meeting by any person, including the audience, is inappropriate and will be addressed by the board president or the board's counsel as a meeting parliamentarian. Continued or repeated disruption of any board meeting by words or action may result in removal or loss of the privilege to attend the meeting. Prior to this meeting, board members received information related to items on tonight's agenda. Agenda items will not necessarily be handled in the order listed on the notice. During the course of this meeting, the board may determine that a closed session is necessary. In that event, the board will meet in closed session to consider matters duly posted for this meeting as permitted by sections 551.071 through 551.084 of the Texas Government Code. These proceedings are airing live on the district website. They will also be available as video on demand on the district website following tonight's meeting. For the video to adequately reflect the proceedings, I respectfully ask that you please refrain from talking while others are speaking and that cell phones are turned off or in silent mode. Thank you for taking the time to join us this evening and for your interest in the Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District. We have no elected officials with us this evening. We do have scouts with us. And when I call your name, please stand. Lucas Kudia, Troop 277, Ryu Hildreth, Troop 277, Matt Chambray, Troop 277, Joshua Morgan, Troop 901, John Sarazin, Troop 277. We want to thank you for being here, and we always applaud our scouts. Now, in addition, we also have Girl Scouts with us this evening, so when I call your name, please stand. Olivia Morgan, Troop 111063, Meredith Krause, 112096. Meredith, where are you?
Back here in the back.
Excellent. And so, Olivia, I owe you an apology. I have a patch to mail to you, but it didn't make it out the door. So rest assured it's on its way. And then for Meredith Krause, if you would make certain that your parents can provide an address to Leslie Francis, I will also send you a patch. For the viewing audience, what that means is I am a board member of the Girl Scouts of San Jacinto Council. It covers an area larger than 20 some odd states. And if a Girl Scout happens to meet a board member, we as board members are supposed to have patches with us at all time to give to them as a thank you. It will be rectified. I'll work on that going forth. At each open meeting of the board, patrons who have registered in accordance with the procedures established by BED regulation may address the board during the designated agenda comments period prior to the board's consideration or action on the item. Unless the agenda is otherwise rearranged by the board president during the meeting, agenda comments will generally be taken prior to each agenda item. Also, in accordance with the procedures established by BED regulation, patrons may address the board during citizen participation on any matters of interest or concern that are not posted agenda items. Unless the agenda is otherwise rearranged by the board president during the meeting, citizen participation will generally be held after reports and action items. For detailed information and instructions on registering to speak under agenda comments and citizen participation, please go to the district website at www.cfisd.net. Patrons who have registered to speak this evening may see the order of names listed on the screens, both to your right and to your left. Before your name is called, please move forward and sit in one of the two reserved seats on the front row to my right. As always, we will start with the invocation. After the invocation, colors will be presented and we will have the Pledge of Allegiance. The invocation for tonight's board meeting will be given by Dr. Kevin Pigg, Senior Pastor of Crossbridge Christian Church for over 10 years. Crossbridge has been a loyal supporter of the district's Bus Buddies programs for 10 years, helping our elementary students get off at the correct bus stop the first couple of days of school. Crossbridge also partners with Feast Elementary to provide volunteers and mentors. Dr. Pigg and Jill, his wife of 29 years, have two sons who are CFISD graduates. Dr. Pigg, we thank you for being here tonight and for the ongoing support you and your church provide to our students and the Cy-Fair community. Before the invocation, I would like to introduce the Cypress Falls High School Air Force JLTC cadets who will be presenting the colors this evening. Carrying the Texas flag is Cadet Ayane Gonzalez. On the Texas rifle is Cadet Aliyah McIntyre. Carrying the U.S. flag is Cadet Veronica Ortega, and on the U.S. rifle is Cadet Isillas Linares. These cadets present the colors to you under the direction of Chief Master Sergeant Reginald Morrell, United States Air Force, retired. At this time, I would please ask for you to stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
May the Lord bless you and protect you. May the Lord smile on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord show his favor to you and give you his peace. Abba, Father, I want to come to you in the name of your strong Son, Jesus. And Father, I pray for your peace and your blessing to reign in this room tonight. Father, thank you for these capable board members and staff. And Father, thank you for all the teachers and passionate parents that love their kids and want to see them grow. And Heavenly Father, I pray that everything works together to make that happen and for your honor and your glory in this place. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order, colors. Right turn, march. Forward, march. Color guard, halt. Order, colors.
Please be seated. Board Vice President Julie Heineman will read the district's vision and mission statement for the benefit of the audience.
Our vision at CFISD is formed from the acronym LEAD, to learn, empower, achieve, dream. LEAD. Our mission is to maximize every student's potential through rigorous and relevant learning experiences, preparing students to be 21st century global leaders.
We will now proceed with the remarks and recognitions portion of the agenda. Superintendent Dr. Henry will make remarks and announcements regarding the honors and achievements earned by staff and students in recent weeks and provide information regarding district and community events or items of interest. There are no speakers on this topic this evening. Dr. Henry.
Thank you, Mr. President. CFISD put an exclamation point on the end of 2022. Check out all the monitors, and we'll show you the video highlights of December. If you haven't noticed by all the decorations around the boardroom, January is designated by the Texas Association of School Boards as Board Recognition Month. The 2023 theme is Forward Together. Being a trustee requires hundreds of hours of volunteer work with many important decisions placed upon their shoulders. We wanted to thank our 7 trustees tonight for making a sacrificial commitment to our community. As we emerge from a very challenging period in public education, we know that with your leadership, we will move forward together. And I would just add to that, I appreciate these ladies and gentlemen at the dais tonight and their willingness to sacrifice not only family time, but personal time and give back to the community. Most people don't realize that the 7 of you up here are non-paid volunteers, and you do this for the fun of it. So we appreciate your willingness to serve, and the children and the community benefits by your service, so thank you. We also have some speakers tonight who would like to express their gratitude. First, from the Cy-Fair Chamber of Commerce, let's welcome President Leslie Martone.
Good evening. It is my pleasure as my 11th year to come to you and thank you for all that you've done. Dr. Henry, President Jackson, and board members, thank you for the time that you give to our community. You are truly the bridge from our community to our schools. On behalf of the businesses and the Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, we thank you for your service. And again, ditto to what Dr. Henry said, the hours that you put in for your personal time and don't get paid a dime for it. So we appreciate that and thank you for all that you do. Thank you.
Next, from Cypress Families for Public Schools, I'd like to welcome Brian Henry.
Good evening. On behalf of Cypress Families for Public Schools, a nonpartisan nonprofit formerly known as Cy-Fair Civic Alliance, I want to express appreciation to the entire Cy-Fair ISD Board of Trustees for their service this past year. As a teacher, I feel an obligation to serve every student to help them reach their potential, and I think school board trustees have a similar obligation to the community. Here in Cy-Fair ISD, we are fortunate to have school board trustees who strive to listen to and represent the entire community in all its diversity and promote the dignity and opportunity of all students and staff. I imagine it can be difficult serving as a trustee. The word trustee implies that the individual must strive to exercise power in accordance with a defined organizational purpose or mission. In other words, a trustee must serve the community, not just themselves. A trustee must identify what is best for the entire district, not just their friends or allies. A trustee must be ethical, conscientious, inclusive, deliberative. They must set an example and hold themselves accountable. And in the words of President Jackson on Monday, be willing to take the heat when difficult decisions are made. We applaud any trustee who strives to live up to these high standards of their elected position, and we wish them well in doing so. Thank you for your service to Cypher ISD, and Happy New Year.
And I think, is Mariah Smith here with the Girl Scouts of San Jacinto? Meredith Krause is here. I'm sorry. Thank you, Meredith.
Hello, my name is Meredith Krause, and I am a junior with Girl Scout Troop 112096 from Post Elementary. Being a Girl Scout is one of the things I am most proud of, and it has allowed me to have so many cool, new experiences, help my community, and make some great friends along the way. My favorite thing to do as a Girl Scout is go to summer camp. I have been to both Misty Meadows, where we ride horses, and Agnes Arnold, where there are lots of fun camping activities like archery and canoeing. On behalf of all the Girl Scouts in Cypher ISD, I would like to thank you for making CFISD a place where girls can challenge themselves, be confident in who they are, and make our community and the world a better place through Girl Scouts. We brought you some Girl Scout cookies as a sweet little token of our appreciation for all of your support for Girl Scouts. Thank you.
Hand them to Holly there. Thank you, Leslie, Brian, and Meredith. To show appreciation for our board members, AVP Practicum students from Bridgeland and Cypress Ranch High Schools put together a brief video that I'd like to show you now.
In CFISD, we strive to bring out the best in every student. From academics to fine arts, athletics, career and technical education, and our dual credit programs.
We continue to meet any challenge with our CFISD school board leading the way. Thank you to our community members who serve on our board, who volunteer personal time to support the entire district and every student. Our success wouldn't be possible without your hard work and dedication.
With you all behind us, we can truly move forward together and continue to bring out the best. Thank you for your continuous effort to shape our educational programs and sincere commitment to us all, not just today, but every day.
Also, students at Haregrove Elementary made an additional video for our trustees, which we will play now.
Gracias por tomar decisiones difíciles para nosotros.
Gracias por ayudarnos.
Gracias por preocuparse por nuestro distrito escolar.
Thank you for your time and dedication.
Thank you for volunteering in our school.
Thank you for helping students.
Thank you for helping our teachers.
Thank you for your awesomeness.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you for bringing out the best.
Also, the audience may not be able to see, but thank you to the Cypher High School Culinary Practicum students under the leadership of teacher Leslie Bertrand for preparing the delicious treats that you see at your desk. Lastly, I would like to thank all of our campuses and the Community Programs Department for creating the wonderful decorations you see around the boardroom. Designed for the 2023 Board Recognition Month theme, Forward Together. Now, trustees, I would like to let you know that's your payday. January is designated as National Mentoring Month. Mentoring can make such a difference in the lives of students struggling with academics, personal issues, and staying in school. We would like to thank all of our CFISD mentors for making such a difference in the lives of these students. If you are interested in becoming a mentor, please contact the CFISD Community Engagement Office. The CFISD dance show-offs are scheduled for Thursday, January 26th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Berry Center. See some of the top dance talent throughout our district, including the all-district dance team. Admission is free for all to attend, and I hope you can be there. That's a great event. The 29th Annual CFISD Livestock Show and Sale will be held February 1st through 4th at the CFISD Exhibit Center at 11206 Telge Road. As in the past, we will live stream the judging and the sale. The on-site freezer sale and silent auction will be 10 a.m. on Saturday, February 4th, followed by the buyer's luncheon at Arnold Middle School at 11 and the live auction at 1 p.m. back in the Mike and Darlene Gerard Arena. View more information on the district website. We will honor our school counselors the week of February 6th through 10th for National School Counseling Week. National School Counseling Week highlights the tremendous impact school counselors can have in helping students achieve school success and plan for a career. CFISD's own Berry Center will once again be the host site for the UIL State Wrestling Championship, February 17th and 18th. You can find ticket information and a tournament schedule at uiltexas.org. A reminder that tomorrow, January 13th, will be a teacher work day and student holiday. All schools and facilities will also be closed on Monday, January 16th, in observance of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And I need to back up, not also, it will be closed on Monday, and tomorrow is a teacher work day. So, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Dr. Henry. Board members may make comments during this portion of the agenda regarding student achievements, district progress, data, community input, concerns, observations from school visits, meetings, and conferences attended, district and community events and initiatives, or continuing education. The board may not take action on items discussed. Let me look to my right. Mr. Henry.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Greetings and welcome, everyone, for tonight's meeting. I hope everyone had a great new year and excited for 2023. I know the best is yet to come for Cy-Fair. I want to first start off by thanking everyone who came out to speak on the boundaries discussions. And I know there's more tonight as well, especially the kids. I know it's hard to get up here and speak in a large amount of people in a small amount of time you also have. I appreciate your feedback and the good, positive discussions that we had. It's important to hear all sides of the issue and do our best to represent you and the values you have. I hope you can appreciate that we are doing our best to make the right decisions in the interest for all kids in the district. On a personal note, I would like to give my sincere thanks and appreciation to Christy, Teresa, Laura, and the rest of the team. You take the arrows, you crunch the numbers, you field the calls and the emails, then you work with us when we make all these changes, and you answer the tough questions. It's not easy, and I fully appreciate that, and I want to thank you. This past month, I was able to visit a bunch of schools, and it never ceased to amaze me the great amount of effort that our administration teachers put into our district. The attention to detail and the imagination of our staff is truly impressive. I want to thank the students and administrators who especially asked me to be on a video for their announcements. It was a great experience for me, and it's a creative way that they were reaching out to all the students, engaging them in a very unique way. It's also wonderful to see students planning, producing, and editing these video shows. This type of ingenuity is helping kids try to figure out what they want to do when they grow up. I, for instance, took a computer class in middle school. I learned basic programming, then decided that was the industry that I wanted to be and impacted me beyond my formative years. I want to wish everyone a great and long weekend and wish you all the very best. Thank you.
Dr. Blassington.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Good evening, everyone. Always good to see people here interested in our district. I also want to say a thank you to all our hardworking educators and volunteers for a strong start to the second semester with a nice 4-day weekend to refuel as well. Thank you for returning with a renewed commitment and renewed vigor as we push towards our district goals for each student and all students. As we closed out mid-year, I'm eager to see the reading progress data and the discipline incident and response data. We want to see how our budget and board monitoring goals the inputs are impacting the outputs towards our stated goal outcomes in the district. So that is exciting for me as we look forward into the next meetings. It's the board's job to set the vision and the goals for the district and represent your values as a community and make sure that we continuously monitor our progress towards those goals. In talking with families out there, parents like myself, we all want for our children to have a good job, a family of their own, and a fulfilling life as graduates of our system. And if we set ourselves to focus on the most critical goals in our district that we have for each student in the system, then the portrait of the graduate will paint itself, basically. We do have a responsibility to educate all students for the opportunities that exist. And I think that in our great state, even this great city, I'm reminded of the incredible opportunities that our students can enter into in our very own backyard. They don't have to go far. Not only are technology companies moving here to Houston and our energy corridor, healthcare, the port, all these are places with incredible, rich jobs. But for years, they have had to look to fill jobs from people from out of the country in technical and managerial roles. So many of these jobs are ones that I hope that our kids will be able to compete for based upon the work we do here as your board. I can't help but wonder if we really set ourselves on the focus of a portrait of a graduate with that committee coming up, if we can make sure that we truly aim to see that every kid in our system has the reading, the comprehension, the math skills to fulfill all the needs and fulfill their life goals. I would also comment on the calendar that we'll be addressing tonight. A District of Innovation is a status a district can pursue in order to be creative with some dates on the calendar. This is a year where we ran into the way the holidays fell, where it started to look a little different. I really want to applaud Dr. Linda Macias and her committee. They work very hard to represent and hear from they are representative stakeholders of people in each school who come together to a committee. And they had a rigorous discussion about whether District of Innovation was something that could be considered if we ever want to look at a calendar. I've heard from several people some of the shifts in Klein and other districts where they're looking at school calendars a little differently. And so as a board member, I'd be very eager to see if we would like to discuss the idea of, it may not be what's right for us, but being able to consider District of Innovation as an option for Cy-Fair to see if that's not something that would help us always continue to stay up with the wishes and the desires of our families. Having served for a year on the board, I asked last month in our meeting for to see any contracts that had not come through this board of $50,000 or more, that we just to have a feel for those things that are still out there. And so I haven't got that yet, but I do look forward to really understanding that as we look at our budget issues that are coming up in the spring to set goals for our district and understand the financial implications of everything ahead based on decisions we made last year. I want to say I appreciate Principal Michelle Rice, Dr. Michelle Rice, over at Hoover Elementary, a pre-K2 campus. In visiting, I was incredibly impressed with her use of data to track student growth towards their goal of being on level or above level. She does incredibly focused interventions at that campus, including really understanding the needs of bilingual students and making sure that students close the gap. And so I commend her and her team. I also want to appreciate Dr. Jose Martinez from Langham Creek High School. He really models for and keeps an effective and student-centered staff that have a real good vision for the kids and also a vision of the school as a community hub. I appreciate also a new partner that's joining the school to really brainstorm ways they can support. We encourage any business, community organization, church, house of worship, whatever it might be, to really partner with our schools, those that still don't have partners, and also join other partners to help meet the needs of students on campus. And I appreciate all those who did this incredible show of appreciation for us as your board. We do truly work as servants to the community, and so we appreciate the efforts that everyone did and the beautiful and thoughtful videos and the words from the students and the staff. Thank you so much. It's a privilege to serve you.
Mr. Sarabia.
Welcome, everybody, on the viewing audience and here. I'd like to echo Scott's sentiments towards our administration. They are second to none. They're always as most resourceful as you can get throughout. They are simply the best. Doing my various, doing various events around the district. We are moving along as a lot better than previous years, and that's very nice to see. It's great to have interest in our district. We do have a passion here in our district, and we love seeing that. Hopefully, we can work through some of these disagreements and come to a mutual understanding. Holly, I want to thank Holly here. She's the one who set everything up for our here and everything else. So our appreciation month, though, she did a great job as always, and she's our unspoken hero here on our board and our district stuff. So other than that, welcome and glad to have everybody back.
Mr. Scanlon.
Thank you, President Jackson. I'll keep my comments tonight brief. We have a lot of families here that are very interested in the proceedings for this evening, so I want to respect our time there. Some quick shout outs. So to the Boundary Committee, so the people that are here in the room and then the people who are at home, thank you very much. For all the parents that are in the room, there is another very large group with the Boundary Committee that has worked hard over the last few months and last year trying to get ready for this discussion. And as I expressed to them privately in the last week, and I'll do publicly now, I know that you guys have heard so many families, so many parents, and tried to find ways to understand, listen, educate, and have constructive dialogue. And I can tell you from the parents that I've communicated with that have reached out to me after they've spoken with you, that every single one of them said, we had very constructive dialogue. It was really good dialogue. So the community appreciates our team. You guys are the best, sincerely. So in the last month, we have been quite active in the rezoning conversation. I'm personally grateful for the opportunity to meet new families. I've had lots of conversations with families trying to make sure that people can be educated, can understand a method to speak, a method to interact with the district. And I'm grateful that we can have constructive dialogue. I believe informed families are stronger. And that was my objective. And I'm grateful that we were able to have very informed families and collaborate well with the district. That's a good thing. For this spring, we are getting ready to start our legislative session. We're all planning how we're going to benefit the district. So we will be taking a trip as a board up to Austin. More to come on that later. And we will be advocating for the district. We will be advocating for our teachers, advocating for our staff, our librarians, our admin. We're seeking the best for our kids. And as I sit in this room, I'm not going to get choked up. I look around at all the seats and how little seats are empty. And it's because we have parents that are concerned about their kids and you're participating in your kids' educations. I'm grateful for that because if we are here together, that means our kids are going to have a better tomorrow. So that is a wonderful thing. We will be fighting and we will be advocating for all of our teachers at the legislative session and for our district. We will continue to listen. So we've had a lot of dialogue in the last month. Please, let's continue this dialogue as we seek to go to Austin to represent our community. It's not just our views. That's not really, we're going to have specific views that the district has worked on, but we also need to hear from the community. So as we go to Austin, we want to represent you guys well. On that note, every year I have a job. It happens. And as such, I have a very limited amount of time that I can take off. So pretty much all of my time that I would normally take for school visits is going to be allocated towards Austin visits. So I do not anticipate, for all the teachers that might be wondering, I don't anticipate that I'll be able to get out to schools too much this year. We'll see how all that shakes out.
and what the Austin trips look like. But I know that that's the priority, and if they had to answer a question of whether or not they would want me in the schools or they're fighting for them, they would want me there fighting for them. So that's what I'm going to do my best to do. So with that, I look forward to our discussions this evening. Again, we're here to listen, and we will. Thank you.
Ms. Blackshear.
Trying to find turn my microphone on among all the things around my monitor. Good evening, everyone. I want to start out by saying this is my 8th year on the board, and what a pleasure it has been to sit in this seat as a trustee and represent the families of all of our communities and search for the best solutions for our students and our district, our staff, and our taxpayers. It really is a balancing and a juggling act at best. And I am, as I said the other night, that I read all of the emails and the input, and I am always appreciative of when our parents and our taxpayers come out to our meetings and both speak and listen. And it's a working hand in hand. But I have to say something that has disappointed me greatly in the last couple of the meetings are a couple of things. And one of those is when I hear parents say, I don't want my students to go to school with those students. To me, that is so hurtful to those whoever those other students are, but it is also a form of prejudice and not something that we want to teach our children, certainly, and we strive not to teach in our school district. We strive to instruct our students to be respectful of all of their classmates, of their teachers, and in their community around them. And it was also disappointing to hear some of our patrons, and I'm saying some, I'm not saying all, but I'm saying some of our patrons, I guess the term I would use, try to bully us and talk about that one particular community elected us and insinuate that if we don't vote their way, they will unelect us next time. And who you vote for is certainly your God-given right. But it's disheartening to see that take place. I saw that in my career in the outside world, let's say, outside of education, where if people couldn't get their way, they'd come and just throw temper tantrums and threaten and what they were going to do if I didn't give in to their wishes. And, I know or I feel that these parents don't intend to instill this in their children. Because I will tell you one thing we can say over and over, and I've seen it, children learn what they live. And it is important that we always conduct ourselves in the best manner possible and set the best example for our children, because it's not do as I say and then I do something different. We have to really be cognizant of that. And my boys are grown. I have 5 grandchildren. One has already graduated from Cy Ranch, and I understand parents wanting their children to go to Cy Ranch. It's an awesome school. My kids went to Cy Fair School. As a matter of fact, my boys are 45 and 46, so they never got off the campus. They went to Lambkin, they went to Arnold, and they went to Cy Fair High School. And at that time, we were a much smaller school district. When my boys went to high school, I think there were 4 high schools. So things were quite different back then. And I am so sorry for those of you that your realtors told you that your child would attend a certain school. They can't do that. They can't promise that because they're not as aware. They can tell you where your child will attend school now, but they can't promise you that your child will attend that school throughout their career. Heck, even as a trustee, I haven't been able to make that promise to anyone because we are a fast-growing school district, and so we have been in this position multiple times, and as I've said before, it's the least favorite thing I like to do as a school board trustee. But people in this district have elected all 7 of us to do the best job we can for everyone, for balancing it. And I understand some of the mental angst for our students. I mean, I have seen what the pandemic has done to my own grandchildren. So I empathize with you there. But I also encourage you that if they do need help, we have wonderful resources available in the school district to help our students cope with whatever life throws in their way. And believe me, this won't be the first uncomfortable change, something they don't want to do. But I know the adults sitting out there have had changes happen in their life that wasn't what they would have wished for, but it was what they had to, was their reality and what they had to make the most of. And I would encourage you as parents to, if your child is affected on by whatever we vote on later tonight to do, that you please try to help put a positive light on it for them. I can tell you my boys, and I was talking to them about it last night, because this weighs heavily on our minds, the decisions, because we do know it affects lives. But my boys, their best friends in elementary school were not their best friends in middle school. And their best friends in middle school were not their best friends in high school. It tended to go more, their friends were more went along the lines of their curriculum. And if they were in ag or auto shop or principles of manufacturing, whatever it was, that tended, or the kids they went to church with. But I had 2 friends from high school. We didn't go to elementary school together. We went to church together. And we went to middle school together, and we went to high school together until our senior year. And I told that story the other night, so you know I know how you feel. But yesterday, we are now all 69 years old. And on Tuesday, we had lunch for the first time since the pandemic, because in the summer of 2021, I got the Delta variant and was extremely sick, and I'm still a long hauler. And it was the first time we were together, but you know what? We picked up like we saw each other yesterday. It wasn't as if we'd missed a beat, and that's the nice thing about friendship, is that, you know, true friendships, you just pick up where you left off. So anyway, that is my, I guess, rambling, kind of long way to say we do hear you, and we are concerned about you, and we are concerned about every child in this school district. And for myself, I can promise you that I think about your children and the other children whenever I make a decision, and try to make the decision that we feel is best. So other than that, I had a school visit last week. I visited with Liz Woods over at Salyers Middle School, had a great visit, and You know, they are just doing all kinds of fantastic things over there. I went out to their shop to see their principles of manufacturing class, and it's just amazing what that looks like today rather than what that looked like, 40 or 50 years ago. But, and then yesterday I visited the library at Bridgeland High School and had a great visit. It was so awesome to see the students and one of their reward was their teacher brought them to the library that day as a reward. And there was one student kind of over here by the window reading. There was a group of students playing chess. There was another group of students over here looking at, they were doing some kind of virtual thing that loses this, Granny, because that's way before me. But they were teaching, actually showing another student how to use it. So it was really seeing the collaboration, and I got to meet their pet birdie. Hedgehogs, yes. I'd never seen a hedgehog up that close before, but anyway, it was a lot of fun. I encourage all of my colleagues, if you haven't had a chance to accept Ms. Keene's invitation to visit, please do so. It was really good. So thank you very much, and thank you for being here tonight.
Ms. Heineman.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, Happy New Year. My wish is for all of our students and employees, families, and everyone in our CFISD to have a wonderful and blessed year. Since the last board meeting, I attended 2 of the Superintendent Parent Leadership Committee meetings, as well as the District Education Improvement Council meeting. I joined several other CFISD leaders and volunteers in reading books to students at Tips Elementary right before the holiday. Also helped celebrate the December graduations at the Brodingham Center. I'm so proud of these amazing students who have overcome incredible challenges to achieve this very important goal. I attended the annual Lambkin Elementary Staff Christmas Party and cheered for several of our student athletes at the CFISD Wrestling Invitational. I also participated in the Candy Cane Fun Run, which is a fundraiser for Alt, Keith, and Swinky Elementary Schools, as well as Salyards Middle School. So that whole community combines their efforts, and they put on a wonderful community event to raise funds for their schools. I also volunteered at the Seed to Succeed event at the Berry Center, and this event is a partnership between our school district and the Houston Health Services Department, in which students who have not done well on their vision test on campus are brought to the Berry Center. They receive a comprehensive eye exam. Most of them do need glasses, so right there on the spot, they get to pick out their glasses, and they make them, and they get to go home back to school after having lunch with a new pair of glasses. This effort has been going on for several years, and it's very impactful, and it really contributes to success for these students in the classroom because now they can actually see. Joined about a dozen members of the Community Leadership Committee on a visit to the state capitol for opening day this week for the 88th legislative session. And finally, I continue my weekly mentoring sessions with students at Cy Falls High School and Cy Park High School. I heard that Cy Ridge High School was also looking for mentors, so I started mentoring a student at Cy Ridge High School just today. I will save specific comments regarding the proposed attendance zone changes for a time when we address that agenda item. I will share that this is the first experience for most of us with a significant attendance zone change. Other than President Jackson and Mrs. Blackshear, this is a new experience for the majority of us. So it's been an incredible learning experience, I would say, for most of us. Our challenge as a Board of Trustees is balancing the needs of the entire district, multiple campuses, individual neighborhoods, and ultimately students. All the students that are impacted both short-term and long-term. Speaking of students, I've been thinking a lot about how schools partner with parents to best support and educate our students. I understand the concerns about the mental health of our children because we We all desire to protect our children from those hard emotions like fear, uncertainty, and anxiety. And it's challenging as parents to help our children to manage these big feelings. And because they watch us, as you said, we're role models for building that resilience and embracing change even when ourselves we're feeling uncertain and anxious. I know that parents will continue to maintain open, positive dialogue with teachers and coaches and administrators, and that schools will continue to embrace and build positive relationships with families. The Texas State Legislative Session did start this week, and between now and the end of May, as Mr. Scanlon mentioned, the legislature will set a state budget and determine how much funding we will receive to fund our classrooms and to meet our payroll, which is 89% of our budget. I encourage everyone to pay attention to possible bills that may either positively or negatively affect our school district and our students, so that you can express your thoughts to your elected officials at the state level, either by phone calls, emails, or in-person visits. Next, I love all the photos that were shared yesterday of our littlest learners, our employees' children at our early learning centers as they celebrated their 100th day of school. And I love all the wonderful shout outs to the Langham Creek High School theater students for their production of Schoolhouse Rock. They put on some special performances for elementary campuses. Elementary schools bussed kids over to Langham Creek and got to watch that show, and it was a big hit with the kids. Finally, I just want to end with a quote that I read this morning by Ralph Waldo Emerson that held special meaning for me today. The purpose of life is to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate, to have it make some difference that you have lived and lived well. Thank you.
All of our board meetings are very special. This one, of course, is always noteworthy. The outpouring of support is very special. And Dr. Henry, this is payday, and let me tell you, it's a wonderful payday. But it's also a time, at least for myself, to say thank you, Dr. Henry, and to staff for the privilege of working with you as we try and chart a course for our school district, for our students, and our parents. And parents and voters, thank you for giving me this opportunity to represent you. And I hope that you accept the fact that although I'm not infallible, I will give you my best each and every day. And some days that's enough, and some days clearly that won't be quite enough. My colleague spoke about the fact that we're in a fast growth district. I had the privilege a few years ago of touring the state along with superintendents of other districts talking about the impact of fast growth. And one of the items that I chose to talk about was the constant rezoning that was required and the stress that it put upon our parents, our students, but also our staff and campus administration. I too joined Ms. Heineman at one of the listening stops to meet with parents as part of the superintendent's advisory meeting. I'm learning better to talk less and listen more. It's always a challenge for me, as you might know. I did attend a number of schools. Decades ago, we heard people say that the personality of a principal could be seen at the school where they were. Today, it's obvious to me that every principal has a different strategic plan based upon the community and students that they happen to serve. And I'm going to highlight some of this with each of the three stops. Last day of school in December, I visited McPhee Elementary School, led by the very capable and delightful Principal Whitfield. A focus of McPhee is community and culture. Thus, on the last day of school before winter break, there were holiday parties with teachers in festive holiday attire, and here's the different part, over 1,000 parents came to attend the day-long event. 1,000. Just imagine as I'm driving up, trying to find a place to park, and it was literally blocks away from the school. It was absolutely magnificent, very heartwarming. The building is undergoing renovation as we speak. I had an opportunity to talk with the project manager. He and his company received rave reviews from the principal for safety, communication, and the work project itself. I would point out that Principal Whitfield made those comments before I went and chatted with the project manager. The segmentation had been completed. It clearly added protection to the pods, and it really appeared to make them quieter as well. And somehow, Roy, we added a little bit of extra square footage to the classrooms. And you heard me talk about this Monday, that an issue with overcrowding, where it's really felt most, is in the cafeterias. And so I had challenged Roy some time back, when we did the renovations, could we expand our cafeteria some? And by golly, at McPhee, you were able to do so. You added a nice bit of square footage. At McPhee, there's a purposeful approach to developing grit. We heard Dr. Henry last year talk about the importance of grit. They do it there not only through the grit matrix, but by developing a mindset. Let me give you an example. Students might say, this is too hard and I give up. And they are encouraged to say, with more practice, it'll be easier. This may take some time and effort. Even though McPhee is a Title I campus, there are parent-driven enhancements which rival those of our affluent school. I want to give a shout out to the principal. She created a penny challenge. For anybody who is old enough, and I don't know that outside of myself that there is anybody in the room, there used to be penny challenges in elementary school. You would bring your pennies and that would go toward an enhancement. Well, in this case, over $3,000 in pennies were raised at that school. The principal made the mistake of telling her parents and students, however many pennies you bring in, I will match that amount and it will all go toward enhancements in the playground area. Let me tell you, the playground area looks super. Probably it should have a little sign saying half paid for by Principal Whitfield and family, but I did not see that sign. Targeted strategies with specific solutions. I also visited Rennell Elementary School. This school of distinction is led by a very distinctive principal, Miss Hemingway Akers, special middle name there, who opened the school. The students there know their mission statement is to perform better today than we did yesterday. That's really the mission statement that I know that I strive for as a trustee, but it's also emblematic of what this entire school district is all about, incremental growth. It reminds me of being a band dad and the expectations of band directors. Whereas yesterday may have been your best, well, guess what? It isn't good enough for today, and somehow you have to do a little bit better. One of the strategic focuses of Rennell is vertical alignment. Fascinating concept. Interaction with the elementary students, both with middle school as well as at the high school level. Of course, that comes to bear whenever we happen to have rezoning, right? But still, a tremendous benefit. And what about that book vending machine? Watchdog dads on campus. And I have to give a shout out to Buddy, the elf. You'll know who I'm talking about. The staggering number of portables is a physical statement that the school is badly over capacity design. One more interesting takeaway is students are given a schedule for a week with a checklist of academic items they must complete with a minimum number of each day. The wrinkle is they choose what items to do that day, meaning they are actively choosing to learn and study. Targeted strategies with specific solutions. I also visited Sampson Elementary School. This is truly a very special and remarkable school led by Principal Motzi. She is a great leader. It's a school of many distinctions. They had a string of 6 consecutive years of all distinctions. Some of you may know that any of our schools that have a distinction, I give them a golden apple. Apple's not gold, but it does have 24-karat gold flakes on the inside of it. To give you an idea of the degree of difficulty, only 3% of any school in the state of Texas ever earns all distinctions in 1 year. To earn them, and the way you earn them is you're measured against your cohorts. 40 schools are picked that look similar to you. So in the case of Sampson, Sampson is competing against 40 other Sampsons around the state. And Sampson achieved that magical all distinction 6 years in a row. So I'm thinking that's somewhat comparable to a reverse 1.5 somersault, maybe with 3 twists, all off of a 3-meter board. In terms of percentages, we're talking about less than 1/2 of 1%, probably closer to 1/10 of 1% of all the schools in the state of Texas that can ever say they had 6 distinctions in a row. A couple of interesting takeaways. 20% of the students on the campus are transfers in. Our rezoning is touching many campuses throughout our district. One campus that remains untouched is Sampson. They are under capacity even with 20% transfers in. Something very special, and I know one of my colleagues on this board will be very interested in this. We have a dynamic PE class that is taught in immersive Spanish. You walk in, the only sound you hear the entire period is Spanish. It is their PE class. They have different types of PE equipment. On the equipment itself, you have different nouns in one place, you have verbs on another piece of equipment, and throughout all of the instruction and all of the direction is all in Spanish. This was something that I challenged Dr. Macias about many years ago, saying, how can Cy-Fair, with our limited budget, come up with an idea similar to what the rich districts did for dual language, all in the face of a shortage of qualified dual language teachers, certified. And it took some time, and she kicked this off several years before COVID, and then, of course, COVID came along and completely derailed it. So really, this is the first year of that new program. I can't wait to see, and I'm excited to see what this program will look like and be like in 3 more years. One final takeaway, Sampson turned 20 this year, and as a special aspect of turning 20, the principal and her staff and their community decided that they would have 20 random acts of kindness. And so one of the random acts of kindness of Sampson is they adopted Farney Elementary. Very, very special. It's what makes this school district different than all the other districts in the state of Texas. Not only do we have churches that come in to adopt our schools, companies that come in to adopt our schools, but by golly, we have our own schools reaching out, where parents of that school, with their hard-earned money, making donations, and they know that that's going not to benefit their children and friends of their children, but to students that they have never met and probably will never meet. Very special district that we are privileged to live in, and we as trustees are privileged to serve. We will now proceed with the action items portion of the agenda. Action items 3A and 3C through 3J were moved to consensus during the board work session on Monday, January 9th, 2023. 3A, the board will consider approving the minutes of the December 12th, 2022 regular board meeting. There are no speakers on this topic this evening. That item is on the consent agenda. Item 3C, the board will consider adopting a revision to the compensation plan to increase the lifeguard pay rate. No speakers on that topic. That also is moved to consent. The board will consider approving the calendar committee's recommendation for the 2023-2024 instructional calendar. There are no speakers on that topic this evening. 3E, the board will consider approving the issuance of Career and Technical Education CTE teaching permit to Joshua Greisman in lieu of standard teaching certification as established by law. No speakers on that topic. 3F, the board will consider approving construction proposals and contracts paid from bond funds to the recommended contractors and authorize the superintendent or designee to execute all necessary documents related to such contracts as follows. 3F1, 2022 Holbrook, Holmesley, and Lee Elementary School reservations. No speakers. 3G, the board will consider awarding bids and contracts and or authorizing purchase orders as recommended in the posted agenda item. 3G1, banquet chairs for Berry Center. 3G2, school bus driving simulator for Raj Simulation. No speakers on that topic. 3H, the board will consider approving a donation agreement between Cypress-Fairbanks ISD and the Yorkwood Civic Club for the donation of land to construct a cul-de-sac for the purpose of addressing traffic issues at Holbrook Elementary School and authorize the superintendent or designee to negotiate the final terms and execute all related documents. No speakers on this topic. 3I, the board will consider approving the granting of a water meter easement to the Barker Cypress Municipal Utility District for water service to Metcalf Elementary School and authorize the superintendent or designee to negotiate the final terms and execute all related documents. No speakers on this topic. 3J, the board will consider approving the granting of a water meter easement to Harris County Municipal Utility District number 264 for water service to Holmesley Elementary School and authorize the superintendent or designee to negotiate the final terms and execute all related documents. No speakers on item 3J either. If any board member wishes to remove one or more of these items for further discussion, please do so at this time. If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the consensus items as recommended or amended.
Mr. President, I move that the board approves the consensus items as recommended or amended.
Motion has been made. Do I hear a second?
A second.
Motion has been made and seconded. It is now appropriate for board discussion on any of these items. So a couple of comments. For the viewing audience, please tune in to the Monday night work session. We did have a number of important questions that we asked. Please pay attention to the question that Mr. Henry and I asked about the construction contract. That was an important question to hear the answer from. On the calendar committee, I would mention to my colleague that on at least 2 occasions and maybe 3 occasions, we have talked about District of Innovation each time, and we've discussed the matter in public as a board. Each time we chose not to adopt it. One of the reasons is with the District of Innovation, you have the ability to tweak teacher contracts. And I always spoke against it because I thought that was sending a wrong message to our teachers, and I always challenged management, see what you can do with the calendar, because I don't want to send an upsetting message to our teachers. I know other districts have adopted District of Innovation, and they do so solely for calendar reasons. But you still have certain powers under District of Innovation once you adopt it that may send an unintended message. And I never want to send a message to our teachers other than the fact that they are in fact treasured and important. Other comments, observations on any of the items 3A through 3 and 3C through 3J? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Holly, please record that as being unanimous. The following action items were placed on the non-consensus agenda. Item 3B, The board will consider approving attendance boundaries for elementary number 58, elementary 59, and middle school number 20, and the modification of multiple attendance boundaries. We will have, let me turn the page again. We have 55 speakers on this topic this evening. And will we proceed with the speakers or the presentation first? Marnie?
Well, the speakers have to, as an agenda comment, it has to occur prior to or during any board discussion. So the easiest thing is probably to do it first.
So each speaker will have 1 minute. If we have more than 15 sign up for any agenda topic, the time limit is reduced from 2 minutes down to 1 minute. What I will ask for you to do is alternate. So when you know you're the next speaker up, please go to the unoccupied podium, and that will reduce the transit time. I will also mention, please refrain from making disparaging comments about another campus. I would also mention that, yes, we as a board, we're responsible. You can direct your angst toward us, but if there are threats directed at least toward me, I have difficulty hearing what you have to say. I hear the threat, but it's hard for me to listen to the real meaning of what you have to say. I'm not the only one. When I was a citizen, and the lieutenant governor was a brand new elected senator 1 week into being elected, that was a comment that he shared with me. And I thought it made a lot of sense. So I thought tonight I might repeat it. So, our first speaker for this evening, Mr. Secretary, are you ready? 30 seconds. Please remember, when the yellow light goes off, you have 30 seconds to wrap up. When the red light comes on, you have about 1 sentence to finish and conclude. If you go over 1 sentence, I'm going to interrupt you and say, please stop. Our first speaker, Shannon Viola.
Hello, I'm Shannon Viola, a resident and parent. I'm here in opposition to the proposed boundary changes to RC 706 Canyon Lakes at Stonegate, which are Postma to Copeland and Cy Ranch to Lingham. My son is currently attending Postma Elementary School. When local elementary schools are ranked based on driving distance from my home, my son is already currently zoned and attending the 4th farthest elementary school. The district's current boundary proposal recommends sending us farther away from our community to the 5th farthest elementary school. The current rezoning proposal unevenly distributes the burden associated with boundary changes. Despite the northernmost, us being the northernmost perimeter of Postma, we're being sent to a school that is past the southern parameters of Postma. So it extends our commute by 4 additional stoplights down Barker Cypress. I urge your committee not to increase the burden that has already been placed on this group of parents. Please vote no to the final proposal presented on Monday. And I know you guys have a tough decision to make. You have to consider numerous variables for the whole district, parents, students, and teachers and staff. I think it appropriate that January is the Board Appreciation Month since you guys are in the hot seat. Thank you for your time and your service.
Our next speaker is Darren Rupinski.
Good evening. First, I'd like to start by thanking the board for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Darren Rupinski, and my family and I live in a section in Town Lake that is up for rezoning. My wife and I have watched the past few meetings from home and know what a difficult position the board is in regarding rezoning and overcrowding, so I very much appreciate the time given to me this evening to share our viewpoint. We have 2 young children at home. Our oldest is due to start at Rennell this fall in kindergarten. We'd like to give him, and all of his fellow classmates for that matter, the stability and foundation they need for success in elementary school. Rather than have them spend 1 year at Rennell and then uproot them to an entirely new school for 1st grade, I humbly request that the board votes yes to the recommendations made by the Boundary Committee and to vote on Phase 2 this week rather than postpone it. Please allow our children to stay with our community and attend Rennell this fall and for all of their elementary years. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sean Joyner. Sean Joyner. Sean Joyner. Our next speaker, DeKeelan Joyner. DeKeelan Joyner. DeKeelan Joyner. Our next speaker is Donna Joyner. Donna Joyner. Donna Joyner. Our next speaker is Alyssa Anderson.
Hi, thank you for listening today. As you partially witnessed on Monday night, there have been many emotions over the 12-8 proposal in our Stonegate community because we care. Since then, I have discovered more neighbors who have not heard of the change. Their disapproval was apparent as we all have a love for Cy Ranch and were originally zoned to stay there. It has been stated by Superintendent Mark Henry that the most important priorities in determining boundaries are to listen to community feedback and disrupt as few students as possible. These goals have also been on your boundary proposal slides. Taking our Stonegate kids out of Cy Ranch disrupts more kids in your district than was originally proposed and ignores the outpour of community feedback you have heard at these podiums this week. We thank you for reconsidering and keeping our neighborhood at Cy Ranch, which is very much what our hearts desire. 373 and 2173 to Cy Ranch. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Erica Moore.
We want to thank the board for listening to the outcry on behalf of the 127 Stonegate residents on Monday. The number of Stonegate students attending Cy Ranch is approximately 250 over 4 years, and not over 400, which was mentioned in Monday's meeting, due to the grandfathering clause. The data does not make a dent or support your goal of relieving Ranch or filling up the underutilized campus. My question to you respectfully, board, is why not pause Bridge Creek and Avalon? You had them going to Cy Springs as a viable option on November 10th and kept our 127 kids at Ranch. What changed? There are over 2,000 open lots between Avalon and Bridge Creek. Those kids are coming in a few years. Those parents and students will be in the same predicament as us, fighting to keep their roots at Ranch. So why not move the 28 students now with minimal impact? Please let us do what's in the best interest of our kids and not rezone Stonegate for the third time. Thank you, board, for your consideration.
Our next speaker is Jamone Moore.
Hey, good evening. The focus of the final boundary recommendations on 1/12/2023 was to provide a long-term solution to the issue of Cy Ranch's high school projected enrollment being over capacity in the future. Two things were made very apparent that night. One is finding a solution that is more important than our students' mental health, friendships built, excitement about going to high school and the opportunity. It's been dismissed again tonight. The second thing that was made vitally important was that we need to keep feeder school continuity for imaginary children in a faraway kingdom being built called RC 3232. Our real children who are here, all 127 of them, they'll be ninth graders next year, should be our focus. And the funny thing is, with the inaccurate passive projections being used to do all this, in 5 years, Cy Ranch will be at 97% capacity. Using 1114 that you guys worked so hard on, they'd be at 96% capacity. No portables needed. So, bad data yields bad analysis, lends itself to bad decisions. Let's pause.
Our next speaker is Steve Campbell. Steve Campbell. Steve Campbell. The next speaker has been marked out, but I will mention the name. Leanna Campbell. The next speaker is Celine Hattab. Celine Hattab. Celine Hattab. Our next speaker, Crystal Kinsey.
Hello. Thank you for letting me speak this evening. I understand the hard choices that are in front of you. I, too, was an elected official before I moved to this area just recently. As an elected official, I was always asked, does it matter to show up? Does it matter? My answer has always been yes. So please, I ask you, for all the people here, people that are asking, does it matter? Do local things really matter? Think about that. So I live in Stonegate. I believe it's 706 resident code. Unfortunately, it seems like Stonegate has lost the geographic lottery. And so it sounds like the board is saying, I'm sorry, Stonegate, you're kind of in this horrible spot, so we're just going to continue to divide you. Our elementary schools in thirds, half of our third of it is going to Postma, not Postma, Copeland, Postma, and then I'm sorry, I don't remember the one to the north, and then 3 changes in 7 years. I mean, it's just, it's a lot, and just to say that, I'm sorry, you guys, you just are in a bad spot. I just would really ask you guys to dig in and get creative. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Joseph Green.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Green. I've served this beloved country for 21 years in the United States Navy, and I'm a member and representative of Bridge Creek. We want to thank the board and trustees for their consideration and vote for Bridge Creek to attend Elementary 59, Smith, and Cy Ranch. And on another note, to hear other communities spread misinformation about Bridge Creek is disheartening. It is common practice for families to review statistics of neighborhoods, crime rates, and school rankings prior to purchasing a new home. And it's upsetting to hear manipulative remarks about Bridge Creek for using those practices. These statistics play a role in decision-making, as I'm sure everyone in this room has performed when they purchase their own homes. Bridge Creek community members are not spreading messages of fear and hate as others allege. We are a loving community and hope others can see us as such versus what others have tried to describe us for their benefit. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Laura Campbell. Laura Campbell. Laura Campbell. Our next speaker is Ryan Viola.
Hello, Ryan Viola. I'm here to voice my opposition to any boundary changes that would disallow elementary school age children from finishing out their term at the school to which they started. So specifically, my child is going to Postma, and the proposal is shift him to Copeland. When I was in 2nd grade, my friends were Travis Cormel, Mike Preeb, Heidi Holtis, and Kristen Buller. My teacher was Miss Connie Neer. 3 years ago, my wife and I were at Olive Garden in Hutchinson, Kansas, taking a break from the Christmas cheer at my folks' house, and I heard a voice at the end of the bar, very distinct voice, and I looked up and I said, Miss Neer, is that you? And she said, Ryan Viola. And so at the risk of dating myself, it had been 30 years since I'd been in her 2nd grade classroom. And she remembered me, and she remembered my friends. And so the point I'm trying to make here is these kids it's a vital stage in their development, and to uproot them from their current setting and send them somewhere else, it can be damaging. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ivy Smith.
I want to share with you my fortune. I just had ordered Chinese food for my kids because I was in the meeting. It says, a golden egg of opportunity falls into your lap this week. We're living through a time of extraordinary change. I'm a Stonegate resident. I've seen some of the zoning changes in the past. Change can be exhilarating. It could be scary and disruptive. Please consider Stonegate when you are making your decision, long-term placement. I want to thank the committee. I also want to thank the Cy Falls principal, Becky, and the AP, Wanda and Laura. They helped me see that the grass can be greener on the other side. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Carolyn Parovi.
Good evening, board and administration. I am here once again advocating for our Stonegate kids. I did want to start off by apologizing for my harsh words on Monday, but I think you can understand as a parent when your child is hurting, you will do anything for them. I did also want to mention some numbers as previously mentioned. I know that the administration said that it was 127 students. However, based on the RC codes that were provided by Laura Lawless, it's 115 without taking into consideration the grandfathering. That breaks the number down to 80 kids. So it's not 22%, it's 14%. I do want to mention that this means that over 4 years, it would be closer to 250 students. I want you to take into consideration these numbers and just ask yourselves, is 80 students a relief for Cy Ranch? Is that worth the progress that they have made? It may seem trivial to us as adults, but this is their world. So thank you for your consideration.
Our next speaker is Sophia Parovi.
Hello, Board Administration. Thank you for letting my voice be heard the other day, and thank you for considering a pause for Stonegate. Now, you gave us a glimmer of hope that maybe our plans won't be disrupted. Now, despite the numbers previously stated to you, it's not 127 kids that would be going to Falls, it's 80, and that makes a big difference in the familiarity of going to high school, which is a scary and exciting time for teenagers' lives. I'm sure you all once experienced those thrills years before in high school, and I hope to also experience those bonds and bridges you create in that big time in your life. I understand our issues might seem minor to you guys, but going to Cy Ranch was a sure thing in a time of uncertainty. I understand it's a difficult job to fit the needs of the district. However, I hope you take a pause into consideration, and thank you for your time. Have a good night.
Our next speaker is Huda Taraz.
We moved into the established gated community of Stonegate almost 7 years ago, seeking stability. Zach, the oldest of our 3 children, is a 6th grader at Splain and has been playing tackle football with a group of boys that are like family to him since he was in 3rd grade. They're all finally together at Splain, and half of them look forward to being at Ranch. I am very appreciative to the board for keeping RC 2173 and 373 zoned at Ranch, which only makes sense for a few reasons. One, we're an established older neighborhood with only a few students that would be grandfathered in. Children need stability, and our community was rezoned twice before. 3, Ranch remains within geographic proximity to allow minimal disruptions to bus routes and has the capacity to accommodate us. And 4, it prevents Splain from being split from feeding 3 different high schools. Please vote to keep RC 2173 and 373 at Ranch. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Chris Sawyer.
First off, I want to say thank you to the board for considering our pause on the rezoning of RC 373 and 2173. I have analyzed the numbers provided by during the last meeting on 1/9, and the pause is warranted because there's 5 campuses that are going to be over 100% with that proposal. There's relief for Cy Ranch and Bridgeland with the pause, as we can fit it, and their projections do not take in the current housing market as was discussed in the last thing. One example of that is RC 10. RC 10 currently has 1 student in 8th grader, 8 are registered in K through 12, yet the projections show 54 students from PASA going to be in high school next year. Wait until this data catches up with what the current housing market is. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Astrid Espeta.
First of all, to the board and to parents that they might have feel that we were attacking, we're just full of feelings that are making us sad for what is happening to our community. So we're sorry for that. We want to thank the board for even considering keeping our community together, keeping our kids going all together and growing together as a community should. My area has 11 kids going to high school. 3 will go to Falls, the rest will go to Ranch. I'm just asking you guys for a pause. Please keep our community together. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Maria So please pronounce your last name. I've mispronounced it every time y'all have come up.
Aspedia.
Aspedia. Thank you.
First of all, I would like to thank you guys for considering pausing the rezoning. I would love to at least have a chance to be with my friends and to be in the chamber choir. I understand that this must be difficult for you and that rezoning us makes the most sense, but please let me, my friends, and my classmates have a chance to go to Cy Ranch.
Our next speaker is Brian O'Rear. Brian O'Rear. Brian O'Rear. Our next speaker, Nageesh Mishra.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nagesh. I'm resident and representative of Breeze Creek. I wanted to personally thank the board for speaking up on our behalf in last meeting. We are a small community that unfortunately has been misrepresented and used by some of our distant neighbors to spread negativity. I want to pass on this message to them very clearly that we as a parent, we do understand your concerns. But there have been better ways to address this, not by blaming and shaming and naming categorically Breeze Creek, as well as threatening our honorable board members that will oust you from this board. I want to personally thank Ms. Christie and her team for the effort for coming up with a new proposal. We request board members to vote for Breeze Creek to Cy Ranch. Also see what best can be done for the other parents, and if PAJ is the best solution, please go for that. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Bill Collier.
Hi, my name is Bill Collier. I'm a father of two at Rennell. I'm one of the resident directors of the Town Lake HOA Board, and I appreciate what Dr. Henry said about, sort of a thankless job. So I want to take a minute just to say thanks. I want to certainly thank all of you for being available during this time. I want to thank you for listening, and I want to thank you for really working with the community to find the best solution you can in a very difficult problem, one that's really, maybe you could even argue, not solvable, but thank you for your efforts. I would like to just personally ask that you vote and approve the Phase 2 for the elementary schools so we can get this behind us and have it in our rearview mirror. It's obviously caused a lot of us a lot of stress, and it'd be nice to have this done and move on with all of our lives. So thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Jessica Morgan.
Prior to 2017, children in my section of Stonegate went from Lambkin Elementary to Arnold Middle School to Cyfair High School. These schools sit side by side on Tuggy Road and are feeder schools. In 2017, Stonegate Children's Middle School was rezoned from Arnold to Spillane, and the 127 eighth graders we are fighting for were affected by that change. Stonegate kids start 6th grade at Spillane where they don't know anyone, and all their friends from Lambkin go to Arnold. This is a hard transition for them, and it takes time for them to make new friends. The rezoning you are proposing would do this to them again by sending them to Falls when all their classmates go to Ranch. Mrs. Blackshear told the story of being moved her senior year, which, though difficult, made her resilient. While the hardships we face in life can make us stronger, too many unnecessary ones serve to wear us down. The kids from Stonegate already suffer a hard year when they start middle school at Spillane instead of Arnold with the rest of their class. Please don't force them to endure a second round of starting over their first year of high school. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Kelly Sloan.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to thank the board for this opportunity to be heard. Markets are trending downward, and interest rates, as Mr. Jackson previously pointed out, are trending upward. Inflation is on the rise, and massive job layoffs are happening. The rumors regarding fear of the 2008 housing market crash are circulating. Enrollment will continue to trend downward because of these economic impacts. A pause allows for reflection and recalculation to mirror market standards and to also review the padded numbers PASA provides compared to actual enrollment numbers that the Cyfair ISD Legal Department provided us. Their numbers are considerably lower. As a school district, the alleviation of both Bridgeland and Cy Ranch occur with the various communities rezoning from Bridgeland to Cy Woods and Ranch to Langham. The board achieves these goals, and it doesn't have to impact our students. This also provides a much-needed pass to Residential Code 373 and 2713 in the rezoning wheel, as we are consistently subject to impact, more so than other communities. Thank you. And pause for 2173 and 373.
Our next speaker is Avery Sloan.
Good evening, members of the board. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to have my voice be heard on Monday and again this evening. It is nerve-wracking enough to stand in front of a large crowd and speak out, but to do so in an effort to fight for your hopes and dreams makes it even more terrifying. I strongly urge you to vote for a pause on the rezoning of Res Code 373 and 2173. Please allow my aspirations to stay intact by keeping us at Cy Ranch. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Steve Sloan.
Good evening. First of all, thank you to all of you
for allowing us the opportunity to be heard on Monday and again this evening. On Monday, I had stated that the numbers were inaccurate, and here's the reason why for a couple examples. 2021 to 2022 year-over-year sales were down 33%. 4 out of the last 5 months, it was over 50%. This is all new residential single-family housing. Closing projections, 2022 to 2023 year-over-year are down anywhere from 21 to 46%. New home cancellation rate, at the end of 2022, whether it was money, interest rates, what have you, was down 26%. Now, all the 2022 final numbers haven't been reported yet, and they won't be for a few more weeks. However, numbers I am referencing only pertain to single-family residents in Cyfair ISD. My point is the passive numbers are way overinflated. Cyfair communities are still under construction. These communities are being heavily factored into your decisions, and the numbers just aren't there. They're not accurate. My request, strongly urge you to allow the market to play out and vote for a pause for 373 and 2173. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Cassidy Staggers.
Good evening, board members. Please pause and reevaluate rezoning of RC 373 and 2173. Many members and students from my community spoke with you on Monday and via email since. Good to see you again. But thank you for listening. As a community, we were pleased with the recognition from the board that we are not just numbers, but parents and students who have a lot at stake in these rezoning efforts, not to mention the students in particular who have been through a lot. We also recognize that the board members are people too. So thank you for listening again, and we truly believe that you want to sympathize with us and listen and also want what's best for our students. We also know numbers are important. We believe the numbers provided by PASA are not accurate, and we've done our own due diligence looking through yearbooks and accounting for grandfathered siblings that haven't been taken into consideration yet. These numbers combined with declining enrollment means Cy Ranch will not be as over capacity as projected. We have already been rezoned twice, and we urge other newer, higher growing communities to take their turn, per se. We don't wish to have Spillane split 3 ways either. So please reconsider, pause, pass over, whatever you want to call it, our community, and keep these students at Ranch. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Heather Jones.
Good evening. My name is Heather Jones. I'm a mother of 5 children and a Stonegate resident against the Cy Ranch to Cy Falls boundary change. The district set a precedent for how they would communicate with the community when they sent emails regarding the boundary changes on November 14th and November 29th. A good faith attempt was not made to continuously post the appropriate notices of these major changes affecting us via the previous email used by email. I only found out about the December 8th boundary changes a few days ago by word of mouth. It wasn't clear from the initial communication that an additional change was even a possibility. Why was the updated boundary change not sent out by email as the initial version was? Many parents are still not aware of the December 8th zoning changes, how this meeting regarding these major changes will affect their children, and are not able to voice their concerns. I really appreciate the board, the administrator's hard work, and consideration to keep residential codes 373 and 2173 zoned to Cy Ranch. I've been very impressed with this school district. I always speak very highly of it. I can't say enough about the teachers and staff that my children have been with, and I'm grateful for them and for all of those behind the scenes. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Gopal Mitra.
Good evening. I'm Gopal Mitra. My family and my children are part of the Stonegate community. I support the November 10th proposal that keeps Stonegate zoned to Cy Ranch High School. Members of the administration, members of the board, I'm thankful for all the work that you do and the decisions you make. Your decisions, I expect, are based on data and information. But as we know, the third-party data on projected attendance is based on assumptions and will differ from reality. Depending on the assumptions adopted, various conclusions could be drawn and several solutions could be viable. It is important to invite additional context and validate the data against various means, including comparison with current enrollment numbers. Towards this goal, our Stonegate community has provided you with additional data points and supported them through various statements, emails, spreadsheets, proposals, etc. The third-party data is not final nor absolute, but your decisions are final and will absolutely impact the lives of our children and the well-being of our children. Please consider the community feedback. Please recognize the limitations of third-party data, and please decide to keep Stonegate zoned to Cy Ranch. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Satya Kamini.
Hi, good evening all. My name is Satya Kamineni. I am resident and representative of Bridge Creek. We want to reiterate what Christie and zoning committee stated at the meeting last week. She clarified that the decision to move Bridge Creek to Cy Ranch High School was not done because of any community input or emotional pressure from Bridge Creek residents, as was falsely claimed at last week's board meeting. The recommendation was changed because it offered a small relief to the overcrowding at Bridgeland and aligned Smith to be an exclusive feeder school to Cy Ranch, which were both objectives set forth by zoning committee. We respect the committee's hard work and thank you again for clarifying the intent of the 12-8 proposal. We ask the board support in voting for Bridge Creek to Cy Ranch. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Dion Celestine.
We from the Stonegate community, please ask that you vote to take a pause on the rezoning plan. Now that we have speculative enrollment figures, let's take a pause on the rezoning to implement a fair and compassionate plan. Stonegate has long been a part of the Cy Ranch community. Community is what nourishes children and educates them. Community is what got us through the pandemic and all of the other rezoning changes in the past. Our 8th graders attended the Cy Ranch open house. They were excited about electives, and we received no notice of proposed changes. Let's take time to take a pause, look at all of the figures, and come back when we have time and when we can have compassionate answers. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jason Orme.
I'd like to thank the board for the time and also all those giving input here. I represent Bridge Creek, and though I do come from a kingdom far, far away, I assure you my son is not imaginary. And I really sympathize with all the things that are being said here. All of our children have had a hard couple of years. I know my son as well has had a difficulty making friends and connections. We moved to this community specifically because we know this is a great community with great schools. We're excited to be part of it, and we just hope that the changes that are proposed do not do the same kind of shifting that we've heard that some of these other districts have gone through, or these groups have gone through. My son, he's right now slated to be at Wells for another year, and then he loves it. He's so excited to go to school for the first time in 2 years, and constant change, being separated from his peers and other people of his community will have a negative impact on him. And I just want to make sure that it's considered. And we're a small community. Growth is slowing down. We're not likely to have a negative impact in terms of numbers on the communities, whichever one we get put into. And we just hope for some continuity. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jake Anderson.
I would just like to remind the board that Stonegate did submit a proposal that allowed both of our vocal communities, Bridge Creek and Stonegate, to achieve their goals, as we all desire unity. Now, as stated on the administration's documentation on stated considerations for rezoning, minimizing changes and community input are key data points to consider with all proposed changes. I do appreciate the board honoring that commitment by listening to feedback from the Stonegate community who were previously proposed to move to Cy Falls. Thank you for remembering that you represent all neighborhood communities in the district. Thank you for your consideration to allow us to remain at our beloved high school and to not rush through an ill-advised change when, number one, clear communication of the proposed changes did not occur and therefore not everybody in the community had a chance to respond, and two, as admitted by the administration, there's not clear enough data on when and where growth will continue to happen within the district to truly necessitate displacing our children. Thank you for listening to our voices, and please vote to allow Stonegate students to move forward together with their friends at Cy Ranch.
Our next speaker is Shandu K.
Hi, this is Chandu, and thanks to the board members and everyone else for giving me this opportunity. I live and represent Bridge Creek. I attended the last meeting and never thought I would be part of these meetings, but here I am. I wanted to remind myself and everyone in this room to remember that we are all here to make, or we want our kids to be better human beings in the first place by providing better environment to live and grow with a better education, but not talk against any other neighborhoods or individuals' interest. I moved from HIST to the Cy Ranch school zone after hearing a lot of good stories and about the culture, motivation, and quality of education that students are receiving here. I wish my son will still have an opportunity to go to the Cy Ranch school after rezoning. I believe Cypher IST management will review the low-performing schools periodically and continuously and provide necessary tools and resources for the school's betterment, which will minimize the parents' concerns and stress on the parents and children and make a better future rezoning process more easier and manageable rather than emotional and then stressful. Thanks for your proposal to the rezone to the Bridge Creek to elementary. Yes, ma'am.
Please stop, sir.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Bandita Sai.
Good evening. My name is Bandita Sai, and I am a resident and representative of Bridge Creek. Bridge Creek is a welcoming and friendly community that is deeply concerned about our children's emotional health and general well-being, just as any parent should be. We all have recently uprooted our families and moved here from all over the country. Then we were notified that our children would be uprooted again from both their elementary and high schools and would not be continuing on with their friends and classmates. We were greatly opposed to splitting our children from the feeder school patterns that would have provided stability. When the community modified the recommendation for our neighborhood to Cy Ranch, we felt that provided security for our children to continue on to high school with people they knew and trusted from middle school, even though it would still require a change to the elementary and high schools that our children were planning to attend when we moved. Because of that, we support a vote for Bridge Creek to Cy Ranch. Thank you for listening and hope you consider our voting. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Armando Perlaza.
Good evening, board members, and thank you for your servant leadership. We really do appreciate that, and you have our attention. Please consider the vote that does not displace roughly 82% of the Spillane Middle School students. The board members yourselves, you have already admitted and agreed that a three-way split is excessive. It is excessive. And it's not good for the district. Choosing the Stonegate to stay at Cypress Ranch is the best choice, and these are the reasons why. Number one, the number of students entering Cy Ranch from Stonegate is a more accurate count of children than the other growing communities. It's too early to have an accurate count of children entering high school from those surrounding growing communities. Number two, Ms. Blackshear, former life experiences should not be what influences the vote to test our children's resiliency. If that was the case, maybe we probably wouldn't have the holiday that we're about to have. The board members have also
Please
talked
stop.
to Cy Ranch. Thank you for your time.
Please stop. Our next speaker is Rubal Saran.
Good evening. My name is Rubal Saran, and I'm resident and representative of Bridge Creek. We want to thank Christy and the zoning committee for an outstanding job in making the geographical sense of the school boundaries. Elementary 59, Smith and Cy Ranch are the second closest schools to Bridge Creek after Bridgeland and adhere to the proximity standards. A proximity table has been provided in the previous handouts. Zoning to these schools will allow for a new neighborhood to start off on the right foot in setting up a proper feeder school to the Cy Ranch. Most importantly, help minimize any social anxiety within our children when they switch to the next campus, and help resolve capacity issues within Bridgeland and Sewell to Wells. We want to thank the Board of Trustees for their considerations and vote for Bridge Creek to attend Elementary 59, Smith and Cy Ranch. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Kishore Kumar Bandalmuri.
Good evening. My name is Kishore and I'm resident and representative of Bridge Creek. We are a new community and construction of our homes began in 2020. Our very first residents moved in later that year, and over half of our current over half of our current residents moved to Bridge Creek within just the past year due to many construction delays. Many of our children have just started their educational journey in Cypher ISD. While other communities didn't expect it to be rezoned 2 or 3 times over their decades of existence, Bridge Creek certainly didn't expect that they would be rezoned before many had even closed on their homes. It has been suggested that it is our time now to be rezoned from the schools our children were attending in Bridgeland. We are understanding the adjustments the district needs to make to Bridgeland attendance, but we are asking the board to maintain the school feeder pattern to the best of your ability. Thank you for listening to our community, and please vote yes for Bridge Creek to Cy Ranch. Thanks.
Our next speaker is Theodore Fritz.
Good evening. My name is Ted Fritchie, and I live in Stonegate, RC 373. I'm grateful to the board for hearing about your concerns about the excessive rezoning of Stonegate and its effect on our children and our community. Thank you for asking for more numbers and being open to leaving Stonegate zone to ranch. If the numbers at ranch are still projected to be too high, then I say it's time to take a more balanced approach to rezoning. The balanced approach we all learned in school was called fairness. Each of us had to stand in line at school and take a turn. So instead of rezoning Stonegate for the 3rd time, how about being fair and let the next subdivision in the line take a turn? Stonegate's a 24-year-old community that completed construction 16 years ago. During this time, we've been through 2 painful rezones already, and now we've bonded to ranch. Please keep Stonegate 373 and 2173 at ranch. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Peyton Fritzie.
Good evening. My name is Payne Fritchie. I'm one of the 127 Stonegate students affected by this high school proposal, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak out. The last time rezoning happened was in 2017. At the time, I was in 1st grade at Lambkin Elementary. I was happily learning and building relationships with others and was unaffected by the rezone until my 6th grade year when I attended Splain. While I was heartbroken losing 80% of my elementary relationships, I've made many friends in the last 2 years. If we get rezoned again, this community would lose all the relationships that we built and start all over. I'm against rezoning us away from ranch because of the heartache it caused me, my family, my friends in the past, and we don't want to go through this after only 3 years of building back what we've lost. I'm exhausted, and I'm sure the children of the Stonegate are too. A statement made in the last meeting indicated that Fairfield has been rezoned as frequently as Stonegate. If this is true, shouldn't Cyfair strive for less rezoning than more, especially in the same area? Why should Stonegate be rezoned more than the others in this area? I say even out the rezoning and give another subdivision the same medicine that we've had to endure for the couple years. As a result, please push pause and leave us at Cy Ranch. Thank you for your time and effort for me to speak again.
Our next speaker is June Matandu.
Thank you for your time. My name is Mrs. Matindu. I am a current Cy Ranch parent, and my daughter goes to Anthony Middle School as well. I'm only here to say so much has been said. As a parent of a current student who is a senior and one who is going to be a freshman, who is ready with her electives, who is ready looking up to what her sister has achieved and has been dreaming of this opportunity to follow the legacy of her sister. I pray as a parent that what we have talked about, both sides, that you will consider coming from a heart of a parent, that we are here for nothing else but looking out for our children's good as a community from both sides. Thank you.
And Mr. Secretary, before we start the time, our next speaker is Balaji, and please pronounce your last name for me.
Shanmuganandam.
Right, okay.
That comes from my dad, yeah. Good evening, anyways. Good evening. Thanks for the time given to us, and I'm from Bridge Creek. First thing is, it was falsely stated earlier this week that Bridge Creek is less than a mile from Cy Springs High School. Actually, Bridge Creek is over 2 miles away from Cy Springs, and the community is actually closer to Cy Ranch High School. Cy Ranch is the second closest high school to our community, with Bridgeland being the closest. Our students from the Smith Middle School would be significantly further away from their older siblings if they attend Cy Springs High School, also causing an extended multi-directional drive for those do not use district transportation. For multiple reasons, it is more reasonable for our children to attend Cy Ranch High School, which resides in the same educational village as Smith Middle School. This option keeps families together and would make Smith a pure feeder to Cy Ranch, which is why we ask the board to vote yes for Bridge Creek to Cy Ranch. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Chaitanya Vardhan Kandula.
Good evening. My name is Chaitanya Vardhan Kandula, and I'm a resident and representative of Bridge Creek. As a neighborhood, we have never collectively supported or opposed one specific proposal as a whole. We have been vocal and concerned with the educational future of our children, not pushing for other communities to be removed from a school so that our children can attend. We feel that should be left to the zoning committee and the board. In an ideal world, there would be no need for rezoning and everything would fall perfectly into place. However, that is not the case. We have been vocal only for our children because we know what it is like to want the best for your child. We do not and have not wished for other communities to have to go through these same struggles and concerns for their children. We wish no ill will towards any other community, but we remain supportive of our view that children of Bridge Creek will be most successful staying within the pure feeder pattern for the later half of the grade school education by going to Smith and Cy Ranch. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Our next speaker is Kiara Anderson.
Thank you for listening and valuing the voice of my community. And thank you for the hope you have given us all. Please don't give us hope only to rip it away. Please keep us zoned to attend Cypress Ranch High School. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Karan Kantiti.
Good evening. My name is Kiran Kanteti. I'm a resident and representative of Bridge Creek. We are grateful for the opportunity to advocate our concerns to the board. The proposed solution for the Bridge Creek to be zoned to Elementary 59, Smith, and Cy Ranch establishes a proper school feeder pattern. We are thankful for your consideration. Please vote Elementary 59, Smith, and Cy Ranch to Bridge Creek. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you.
Our next speaker is J.D. Anderson.
Thank you for the consideration and time you have put in to give the Stonegate community hope. Hope for us to go to our dream school. Hope for us to go into the electives we want. And hope for us to be with our friends. And hope for us not to be displaced again. Thank you for listening to us at the last meeting, and please vote to keep Stonegate at Ranch. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Jean-Marie Comgain.
Good evening. My name is Jean-Marie, and I'm a resident and representative of Bridge Creek community. Our community would like to take this moment to correct something that was misspoken earlier this week. We did not know that the recommendation had changed from South Spring to Cy Ranch until after all the members of our community had already spoken at the December 8th board meeting. The zoning community announced that the change directly afterward. There was no giving to our community or last-minute adjustment to the proposal to appease anyone at this new proposal had already been prepared. Prior to the board meeting, our neighbors collectively submitted online responses per the district website, voicing all concern primarily focused on the mental health and social anxiety in not following any feeder pattern for the school being proposed, which we have subsequently presented more of those concerns and more recent board meeting. Thank you for providing Bridge Creek with a feeder pattern that keeps our children together with their friends and previous class members. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Erin Bjork.
Hi, good evening. My name is Erin Bjork, and I am a representative and resident of Bridge Creek. I'm also a mother of 7 boys, 5 of which still live at home and are in school. I'm going to tell you about my middle child. He is a 3rd grader at Wells, and through a series of moves, first for a job, second into our forever home, this is actually his 3rd elementary school. With each change, we have sat and ugly cried because he understands all too well that he will be leaving his friends behind. I'm not looking forward to his last day at Wells because he knows all of his friends will go to another middle school, but I'm encouraged to know that if the board votes for Bridge Creek to attend Smith and Ranch, once he steps foot into the halls of Smith, he will be with those same classmates through his senior year. And then, come graduation, commence the ugly cry. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Trin Pon.
Hi, good evening. My name is Trin Fan, and I'm a resident and representative of Bridge Creek. Our community wanted to close out our comments and go on record that we have never spread hate nor fear in our messages to the district or within the Cypher community. We were discouraged by the language, disrespect, and misinformation we heard from other Cypher ISD neighbors earlier this week that was not representative of Bridge Creek. We fully understand the concerns of other communities and respect their pleas to advocate for what's best for their children, but feel this could have been accomplished without involving and attacking our neighbors and their intentions. I hope in the future all of the communities can work together towards making every school experience in Cypher a great one. I'd like to remind everyone here and those listening at home that although we may not be neighbors, we do all make up the Cypher ISD community. As parents and as adults, we should be leading our children by example, and I hope that whatever decision comes from this, we can be civil and supportive of one another. I'd like to thank the board members and zoning committee for working hard on this matter and hearing each of us out. I understand it's a difficult decision to make, but I trust that you'll be making the best decision you can for our community as a whole. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jeremy Lee.
Hello. So in the interest of minimizing changes and keeping the feeder system streamlined, I'm vocalizing my support of a pause at a minimum of implementing the Stonegate to Cy Falls portion of the rezoning proposal. We've spoken and speak again about our concerns that Spillane will be split 3 ways if the proposal goes through. Our Stonegate kids would make up the smallest percentage of incoming freshmen in the entire district. There's only 2 other groups that are even close, and one of those groups is the other group from Spillane. The number of students going from Spillane to Falls is the lowest, and we all know that the actual number will be even lower once you factor in the number of kids who are eligible for sibling transfers that will remain at Cy Ranch. This is certainly true for our son, who would be the only member of his core group of friends who would not be going to Ranch. This is an unreasonably disproportionate impact on the Stonegate kids, so we again urge the board to consider other options or at least pause the Spillane to Cy Falls portion of the proposal. Thanks.
Our next speaker is Monique Lee.
Hi, I'm here again, and you're here again, but you're always here, so thank you, truly. The last time our kids were rezoned in 2017, Dr. Henry was quoted by Community Impact. The most important priorities for the committee in determining new boundaries were to listen to community feedback and disrupt as few students as possible. We appreciate the suggestion for a pause while the actual impact of these res codes is reviewed. With sibling transfer rules applied, the count is 80 students. The small impact on overpopulation comes at great personal cost, as you saw when our kids spoke. The PASA report is an estimate, and we already know that interest rates will affect it. Our neighborhood has already borne the burden of rezoning more than most. Unlike Fairfield, who moved together, our community has been split. Our cohort is to be further split, as Spillane would be the only middle to go to 3 different high schools. We can do better. We can disrupt fewer. Please listen to our community feedback and keep our Spillane kids at Ranch. Thank you.
Speaker number 55 and the last speaker on this agenda topic, Vivian Lee.
Good evening. Once again, my name is Vivian Lee, and I'm a 7th grader at Spillane. For quite a while, I was thrilled to know that I would be attending Cy Ranch High School, but when I heard about the December 8th suggestion, I felt my aspirations had been shattered. The board recommended that students currently living in Stonegate and zoned to Ranch should be moved to Cy Falls due to the imbalance in populations against other schools, claiming that Ranch had an abundance of students and needed to be spread out. However, if we really crunch the numbers, we can see that we would be moving much less students from Stonegate than 12 advocates claim, making not much of a difference. If we could just pause the rezoning or keep our kids at Ranch, children wouldn't have to worry about going to high school with strangers and leaving their friends behind. We should not be moved so suddenly that it feels like it is being shoved in our faces. Please don't make high school harder than it already seems. Thank you for your time.
I'm going to take a 5-minute break so that if people need to find the restroom, there's some in the hallway. If any board members care to do so, you know where it is. However, we will reconvene in 5 minutes. Management does have an additional presentation to make, and then we will have a vote. So a 5-minute break. I need a quorum. The microphone is yours, Mr. Drone.
Need my presentation on. Oh, there it is. Okay. Good evening. On Monday night, I shared a comprehensive boundary recommendation for the 23-24 school year and a recommendation for elementary 59 in the 24-25 school year. The board requested some additional information regarding a portion of the Cypress Ranch relief recommendation. I'm going to share that data with you tonight, along with some additional information that you will hopefully find helpful. And if the board is okay, I would like to go through the 11 slides with you, and then I'll be happy to answer any of the questions that you might have. That's okay. I'm ready if y'all are. Okay. First, I would like to revisit our original recommendation and share a brief summary of how the high school enrollment relief recommendation evolved, specifically the Cypress Ranch High School enrollment relief. It's a little complicated. Before the 11-14 board meeting, the boundary committee met with all 44 principals that would be impacted by our boundary proposal. We answered questions and listened to their comments. Following the meeting, Teresa and I spoke with Becky Denton. She was a little disappointed with the 11-14 plan because Cypress Falls was only going to be gaining 83 students in a 4-year period. It just wasn't enough. We assured her we would explore some more options. We presented at the 11-14 board meeting the plan that we showed them. It takes a lot of time while we're exploring these other options in the implementation process, so we could obviously have another one by that day. November 15th we began receiving the input, thousands of pieces of input. So here's how it transferred into our recommendation. As you know, initially we recommended Bridge Creek and Avalon students attend elementary 59, then Smith, then Cypress Springs. With this proposal, less than 30 students out of the total Smith Middle School population would go from Smith to Springs, 8%. We considered a middle school feeder pattern change. However, with a recommendation to significantly reduce Smith's enrollment with the opening of Middle School 20, we did not want to further reduce their population by rezoning Bridge Creek and Avalon. Additionally, elementary 59 would feeder into Smith and Anthony. We determined that by changing the high school feeder from Cypress Springs to Cypress Ranch, we could eliminate the middle school feeder pattern concern and establish Smith Middle School as a pure feeder to Cy Ranch. However, this modification in 4 years would bring Cypress Ranch back close to its current enrollment. We began to look at several different residential codes and neighborhoods that could be considered to provide more long-term enrollment relief to Cypress Ranch. All of the residential codes and neighborhoods examined brought different challenges, numbers of students, and/or feeder pattern concerns. We determined Stonegate provided the best solution to best address our priorities, which was reduce Cypress Ranch enrollment and better utilize Cypress Falls. The rezoning of Stonegate to Cypress Falls eliminated the Aragon to Libi shift as well. Libi still remains a pure feeder to Falls. It eliminated the need to take students from Langham Creek to Falls and the two small sections of Copper Village. And the number of students in the Stonegate residential code made sense, 402 students in 4 years. Our final recommendation, which was the Bridge Creek to Ranch, Ranch to Falls, and Ranch to Langham, accomplishes the following. Aragon is a pure feeder to Langham. Smith is a pure feeder to Ranch. Libi remains a pure feeder to Cypress Falls. No middle school feeder changes are needed. The 4-year implementation relieved Bridgeland by over 797 students, relieved Ranch by over 600 students, gave Falls 402 students, and Langham 620 students. As we continue to examine all of the boundary proposal input that develop the Dunham Plan, our high school enrollment relief plan was strengthened. This modification provides the ability to relieve Bridgeland by over 922 students in 4 years, eliminating the immediate need for another high school. Here are the current projected 8th graders that would be affected by our recommendation for the 23-24 school year. Now I'm going to show you where these Cypress Ranch to Cypress Falls numbers came from. Okay. We received some emails and input, and even tonight, regarding our numbers. Hopefully, I can clear up what, with this slide, where our numbers come from. Look at the top row of numbers. On Tuesday, January the 10th, 2 days ago, in res codes 373 and 2173 combined, these were the totals by grade level. Live students' bodies sitting in the chairs from those two res codes. Now, just look at the grades 5 through 8 in the yellow top. There are currently 372 students in grades 5, 6, 7, and 8 that live in those two Stonegate communities. Now look at the row below, also yellow. Those are the PASA projected students for the two combined res codes as well. For those same 4 grade levels, they projected 371 students. We actually have 372 students. That's pretty close to perfect. Now, look at the 8th grade numbers. Right now, we actually have 114 students sitting in those two res codes combined at Spillane. PASA projected 118. If you follow that number diagonally down to the next year, PASA is projecting it to be 127. That is where that 127 comes from incoming 9th graders, students to Cy Falls. If you follow the phase-in implementation by year 26-27, all current 5th through 8th graders would be attending Cypress Falls for a projected total of 402 students, if you add the 89, 94, 98, and 121. This is how we arrived at the 402 total. Okay? We chose to also include the other grade levels. You can see how accurate and extremely close that they are to the live numbers that we have sitting in those classes right now. This is the same chart that you saw the other night. These are, again, your projected totals. Just out of curiosity, I looked at the Cy Ranch number today. Cy Ranch is at 3629. You have to go all the way to school year 28-29 with Cypress Park to get to a number that's big with this recommendation. With these projected totals, here are the utilization percentages that you requested. Compare the top half to the bottom half. The pink is anything over 105%, and the green is anything under 90%. With our recommendation, you can see by 26-27, we are projected to have 2 schools over 105%, but barely over, and 2 schools under 90%. The 2 schools under are 2 of the largest schools, so their numbers are still above 3,000. But Bridgeland goes from 127% to 100. Ranch goes from 115% to 95. Langham goes from 73% to 92%. And finally, Falls goes from 81% to 94%. This is why the committee chose this recommendation. Okay. Now let's go over the data if Res Code 373 and 2173 of Stonegate was paused and not in the recommendation. Here's the map, putting those 2 res codes back at Ranch. Everything else has not changed. Here are the incoming 9th graders projected totals by res code. The only difference here is Cypress Ranch to Cypress Falls is not included. And here are the numbers associated with the Stonegate pause. For the 26-27 school year, Falls is projected to be 2662, which is the same as their current projection above, since there would be no change to Falls. And Cypress Ranch is projected to be 3450. All 402 projected students staying at Ranch. A difference of 788 students between the 2 schools with the Stonegate pause. Okay. Percent utilization. Again, looking at the 26-27 school year, 3 schools are over 105% and 3 schools are under 90%. With Cypress Ranch projected to be at 107% and with Cypress Falls to be 81%. The smallest, most underutilized high school in the district with the Stonegate pause. It wasn't that long ago that Cypress Falls was in the same situation as Ranch and Bridgeland. In fact, out of the 10 high schools in 2015-16 school year, Cypress Falls was the largest with 3,726 students on the snapshot date. That included 19 portables, not enough parking, crowded hallways, double supervision at every event, over 1,200 kids per lunch, long lunch lines with only 30 minutes to eat, worst of all, the floating teachers. If you're a new teacher and don't have a home classroom, many times we lose those educators for that very reason. I reached out to Cypress Ranch and asked how many teachers were floating. This is the information I received. 24 teachers float full-time. This includes 3 art teachers who are in a portable and have no access to running water. We have purchased a portable sink and run water hose to it so the students can clean their brushes, etc., outside the classroom. To break this down by subject, we have 4 English, 3 math, 1 social studies, 5 science, health, business, and so on. 3 teachers float part of the day because they need a science lab and they are in a regular classroom. Cy Ranch also has 5 unfilled positions at this time. If fully staffed, they shared that the number of teachers floating would be 29 instead of 24. On the contrary, if you're underutilized campus, you have many challenges as well, especially with the master schedule. Ms. Denton has experienced both spectrums. Cy Falls shared that they're starting to have an increase in classes that can't be blended together, like your AP dual credit K-level classes. Teachers are required to have different certifications for those classes. In order to still provide those classes, they have to put just one of those sections in a class, which makes small class sizes 9 to 13. Also causes many singletons, classes that you only offer one time. Offering a class only once a day puts a major constraint on kids' schedules. It might not fit with all the other course selections in their schedule and would not allow them to take it. Many singletons also means many preps for teachers. If you continue to get smaller, you receive less staff, which can lead to not being able to offer everything for all kids. Simply, more kids equals more staff and more opportunities. Ways you would build a master schedule for all with a big staff. And then there are, of course, the extracurricular issues. Band, smaller enrollment equals smaller number of bands, which means less staff with the same responsibilities, less horns to make sound, less kids to create show, but have to compete against schools with 3,600 kids. Fine arts, same thing. Assistant directors are based on the enrollment. Hard to fill athletic teams. You said that if there's certain 5 kids that have to go to tutorials, practice stops because they can't practice. Scheduling staff are the biggest things that are impacted with the underutilized building. I wanted to share the history of these 2 res codes. In 1998-99, 373 was created. It went to Lampkin, Arnold, and Fair. Then in 2002, 373 9th and 10th grade was rezoned to Falls. From what I could find, Fair needed relief and could not wait for the opening of Cypress Woods in 2006. In 2005, Res Code 2173 was created. They went to Berks, Arnold's, and Falls. Then for the opening of Cypress Woods in 2006, both Res Codes went back to Fair, 9th and 10th only. That's the way we used to do that. They both stayed at Fair until the opening of Bridgeland in 2017. Boundary changes with populating schools are much easier than shifting among already existing school boundary lines. It is a very difficult and complicated process. I hope this presentation was helpful, and I also hope that it helps you understand the reason behind our final recommendation. Any questions?
I'm sure there are. Let me turn to my right. Mr. Henry, any questions, sir? Dr. Blasinke. Mr. Sarabia.
Christine, thank you for your presentation.
Let me go to the left. Mr. Scanlon. Ms. Blackshear.
I have one. I've heard it said both tonight and on Monday night by parents that the information and the change from the 1110 presentation and to the 12:8 presentation was not communicated. Can you explain to us what the communication process was? Someone?
I'll let Leslie share that information with you.
Yes, Ms. Blackshear. If I could just take the opportunity to kind of summarize what the entire communication plan was for the boundary process this time.
Please.
I think that would be helpful.
Thank you.
Probably for everybody. This year's boundary options did include a wide variety of communication options. And I want to just reiterate that central to the entire communication plan was the feedback form, which we've received lots and lots of feedback, which was incredible. Those of you who's been through prior boundary proposal recommendations know that we had a very general feedback form. It just basically was a block on the website where you would input any kind of comment you wanted to make about anything. Due to the number of boundary changes that were being recommended this time, we did a very detailed feedback form where somebody would go in and say they wanted to comment on elementary or middle or high. And then depending on what they chose, it would drop down even more choices. The great thing about that was we were really able to take that data, planning services was, and create some trends about what the comments were with all the different campuses that were involved. I think Christy said in the very beginning we had 44 campuses. So you can imagine if we had had a real general form, it would have been very, very challenging to have gotten the trends coming out of that data. Following the 11-14 board meeting, because that was the first time there was a recommendation, we posted the presentation on the website the next morning. Of course, all board meetings are archived live, so anybody can go view a presentation. That next day, by school messenger, we sent out an email, a text message, and a phone call to everybody in the community, letting them know that there was an attendance boundary proposal, what that proposal was hoping to accomplish, and where to go access that information. On 11/18, which was a couple of days later, we posted a banner and a link on all campus websites, and we posted the information on social media also. And all of these posts were really very similar. They said, attendance boundary recommendations have been made to the board. Please access them on the district website where the presentation was posted. On 11/25, there was another posting on social media, so 1 week after that. On 11/29, the boundary proposal was included in our electronic communication newsletter. It's called a Connection for Community. It goes out to parents and anybody we have an email address from in the community. That's 164,000 addresses. That went out on the 29th. On December 2nd, we had another posting on social media. On December 6th, we had our electronic newsletter that goes out to employees, and so that was included in that Connection for Employees. So all of that occurred after the first board meeting. The second was the board work session on December 8th. We posted the presentation on the website again the next morning, leaving up the original presentation so that it was just stacked. We modified the feedback form according to how the proposal had changed, and there was another posting on social media out again to the entire community, letting them know about the recommendation. On 12/12 was the formal board meeting. On 12/13, the presentation was posted on the website, again leaving up all of the previous presentations. And the boundary update recommendation was again included in the Connection for Community newsletter. Again, that's that electronic newsletter. It went out to 164,000 emails. That was on December 13th. January 9th was the board work session. Again, the following morning, the presentation was posted on the website, and this one was included in our Connection for Employees. For clarity, we alternate our electronic newsletters. One issue goes to the community, and then 2 weeks later, the next one goes to employees. So it's not the same every single time. And the information can vary. But the boundary information has been included in both of those newsletters. I know Christy has talked about the feedback form. The feedback form, since its first posting on November 15th, we've had over 5,500 forms submitted with feedback on there. It's a tremendous amount of feedback, and I know it's been very helpful for them to refine this process. In addition to that, I also wanted to point out that there have been some presentations to community groups, to our faith-based leader group, also to our superintendent's parent leadership committee, and to our SSLAC, which is our superintendent's student leadership advisory committee. So these forms of communication, in addition to all the emails that you all have received and the administration have received, there's been a tremendous amount of input and feedback from the community. And I think that's really helped everybody kind of shape this plan over the past 8 weeks.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Heinerman?
One more.
Oh, okay.
And Christy, I just want to commend you and your staff for all the work you have poured into this, because every time this board has asked for more numbers or different numbers or percentages, y'all have, the response has been quite fast, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm sure late hours were involved.
Could have done it without them.
Ms. Heinerman?
Christy and team, yes, thank you for the always responding to our requests for more and more and more data, crunched different ways. We do try to make our decisions based upon data, by also understanding that that these numbers are also students and families. I do have 2 questions. In looking at the history of Res Codes 373 and Res Code 2173, and looking at the history of changes, so Res Code 373 has been zoned 3 times since 1998. That's in 25 years. They've been rezoned 3 times. Res Code 2173 has been rezoned twice in the last 17 years. And for each of them, the last time was 6 years ago in 2017, based upon the information that you've shared with us. Based upon the data that we have, with the proposed change, is there reassurance that we can provide some stability to these 2 res codes for future changes for the high school attendance?
It's my opinion, based on the 9-year projections that I gave you, that this plan establishes sustainable enrollments for Ranch and Bridgeland and Falls for at least 7 to 8 years. Obviously, we can't project different variables such as a pandemic or mortgage rates or anything else that may have an impact on the growth of the development. But we feel very confident with the plan that we shared with you, looking at those 9-year projections.
Okay, thank you. The other question I have, or it's not really a question, it's a comment. When President Jackson and I met with Teresa Hull, Chief of Staff, to discuss in between some of these, the feedback, the tremendous amount of feedback we've received from the community throughout this long process. You asked for some feedback on what we could do differently in the future. What lessons are we learning through this process? And again, this is the first time for me, for most of us. So I've been trying to pay attention to that. I think a suggestion that came through in one of the emails was talking about the timing of this 3-month process we've been going through, the timing of that. It has happened after the 8th graders did their side-by-sides with the high school, whether it's band, orchestra. They've already done their plans, which obviously can change. And even though you've done your 4-year plan, those same classes are offered at every high school, right? But they've already gone through that process. So my suggestion would be that when we do this again, for that board, that they start this process, do this before those activities take place. So I think it would make it much easier on parents and students. Those are my 2 comments for now.
I see my colleague is still studiously pushing numbers across the page. I'll make a couple of comments. One, I recognize many of the names of the speakers, recognize many of your words. Some of your emails I did respond to. There are any number of emails I did not respond to. I apologize. I am not a typist, so every one of the emails I send back to you, if you happen to receive one, was most laborious and took amazingly long just to compose and send out. I should have taken keyboarding when I was in school, but it was not offered at the time. We didn't have keyboards at that time. We had typewriters. Christy, I would add my voice to my colleagues. You have done a tremendous job in this regard. I do have one difficult question for you. Any number of our patrons have indicated that our numbers are flawed because they do not take into account the potential grandfathering if we approve the change, which has not been approved as of yet. If we approve that, then all the numbers that we have to look at are suspect. How would you answer that?
I can assure you that all students in grades currently at Cypress Falls from grades 9, 10, and 11, or Cy Ranch 9, 10, and 11, are counted in Cy Ranch or they're counted in Cy Falls for the next school year, 23-24. The only numbers that have been included in the projections for 23-24 are the 8th graders that would be rezoned to those schools.
But have we reduced that for those who may have older siblings?
No, we have not done the older siblings because we don't know for sure if they're going to be making that decision. We will look at that. We've actually already generated some of those lists to see what potentially who could potentially take advantage of the sibling. But that's not included because we don't, that's not how we do it.
Okay.
You can't, right, you don't know who's going to say. But the ones currently there, we're assuming they are saying, and they are in the projected numbers for the next 9 years.
Bad news for the viewing audience. While my trustee continues to work, I'll continue to talk. I know you'll be very surprised at that. One observation I would share with you, some of you may know I'm a stage 4 survivor, as were my parents. My parents each survived almost 90 days. I have survived 9 years, which is a blessing. I speak to many caregivers, and I speak to many cancer survivors. You're considered a survivor the same day that you get the diagnosis. I tell all of them that I have no idea what they're going through. Everybody is different. Every situation is different. Even for somebody who had a pathology similar to mine, I have no idea what they're going through. I only know what I went through. Having said that, my dad was career Army, and some of you may have seen this in emails I wrote back to you. So I have one brother who was born in Gießen, Germany, another brother who did not survive, who was born 3 hours away in Schwäbisch Gmünd. My sister was born in Texas, and I was born in Arkansas, all at Army bases. You can imagine the number of schools that we happen to see. But that's the nature of being in a military family. I know we have some military families in the audience, and your families have been through this. It's just par for the course. The only time it stopped is when we had an assignment to Minot, North Dakota, and Mom said, no. And Dad had to choose. And so he chose, and so he changed careers. Since I've been here in Cy-Fair, I pulled my children out of private school, enrolled them at Lowry. They were there for 1 year before they got rezoned to Feast. My son was a freshman at Cy Falls, finished his freshman year eagerly looking forward to year number 2. And yes, I had green and gold. I was a band dad. We had that Cy Falls blanket, and lo and behold, we were rezoned to Langham Creek. So in my household, I can tell you, there was much angst. In fact, my part of Copperfield was zoned to 3 different high schools. Each of my older 2 attended 2 different high schools. That does not mean that I have any idea of what the Bridge Creek or Bridgeland parents are facing, because I don't. I barely understood what went on in my own high school. I know myself that my best friend from first grade, although I can see his face in front of me, I have no idea where he is or if he's even still alive. And the list goes on. But that's the nature of being a military family. Not so much when you're a civilian family and you move to a neighborhood, but we live in a fast-growth district, and sadly, this is what happens. I know that when we moved from Cy Falls to Langham Creek, the teachers, principal, they bent over backwards to welcome us. Student leadership came over to welcome us as well. I have no doubt that the same will happen to whatever school you happen to be zoned to. I will tell you as a parent, going through this process, I still feel all the upset and all the angst I went through. I came to a board meeting, I spoke against the rezoning. I still feel that today. When I speak to my children, they basically gave me a verbal shrug. Their best friends were at their new high school. But in speaking to students, and I do go to the superintendent listening post, I have an opportunity to talk with students who have been rezoned. They made a point that was not relevant for my children, but it is for that student. And he told me that, yes, they were rezoned, but they were able to keep those friendships because of social media. Now, that's only a single data point, and a single data point is basically meaningless. But I did find that interesting because it was something I had not thought of. Let me turn to my right. Mr. Henry, are you prepared to ask any questions?
Yes, I have a couple, Christy, if you don't mind.
Sure.
If you look at page 6 of there, it talks about this is the recommendation, which says Cy Ranch will be 107%, if I read that correctly.
Page
6 of my slides, sorry. Well, I'll just read them
for
to
the
you.
pause or the recommended?
Recommended.
Okay.
Yep.
So we don't have a page 6.
You mean page 68?
Slide 6, I'm sorry.
68?
68.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm looking at the handout.
Uh-huh.
So I'm reading it, and I'm reading it correctly. Based on your recommendation, not the pause, I'm talking about the recommendation, we'd be at 107% of capacity. Is that correct?
Say that one more time. I'm sorry, I was focusing on getting
No
the right
problem.
slide up there.
Based on the recommendation, not the pause, Cy Ranch would be 107%. Is that correct? Am I reading that correctly?
Cy Ranch with the recommendation, yes.
Okay. And then the following year be 102 and 99 from there, correct? So if I look at the pause, which on my page it's 11, I'm not sure what's on your page. If we look at the pause, it'd be 111%, or a delta of 4%. In my
Yes.
estimation, is 127 kids, basically,
Yes.
difference.
Exactly.
And then the following year, it'd be 110% versus 102%. Is that correct? I know you're flipping back and forth.
Yes.
Which is about 8%, so it goes up another 4%. My question to you is, if we made this pause, I know you addressed a little bit of this earlier, what would that look like for the school as far as that large percentage? I know we have other schools that are high percentage. What would that look like for overcrowding, for buses, for lunches, for teachers, for classes? I know you addressed it earlier, but can you maybe talk to that? If we do pause, my question is on the pause, that 111%, what would that look like for that school, Cy Ranch?
As I shared, when schools are overcrowded or when there are that many students in a campus, you have additional portables, which then take up spots for students to park. Also, your crowded hallways. I experienced it personally myself, and it was 3,700 kids for a couple of years. You have to double supervision every single event because there's so many kids. Again, lunches, 1,200 kids per lunch, 30 minutes to eat, long lunch lines. Floating teachers was the worst one, and master schedules probably is up there as well. I mean, yeah, I mean, you know, you're a brand-new teacher. You know, he mentioned he has 5 spots that, you know, are open. You're a December grad, and you're a brand-new teacher, and you're going to go to ranch and work. You're thrilled that you have a job, but you're going to float. It's hard not having a home base in a classroom your first year, and sometimes we end up losing some of those teachers in years 1 through 3 if we don't provide support in a homeroom. Again, you have challenges everywhere with a large population. There's more discipline issues. There's everything.
Okay. My second question, which is maybe a little harder to answer, if we did do the pause, will we have to make another hard decision next year to maybe readdress this and make other changes based on economic factors, which you mentioned, all those different things?
Yes, Bridgeland will have to have relief.
Okay.
Cypress Ranch, sorry. Both of them have to have relief.
I know what you meant.
I'm sorry.
I know what you meant.
Ranch.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Dr. Blassingame?
Thank you. Really good presentation. Thank you for coming back so quickly with the data that we needed to continue processing through. I concur with Ms. Heinemann's suggestion on the timeline for how we engage students in the process of selection of courses and thinking they're going to a school. I think that is definitely something looking at whether this moves forward or that moves back. I know there's a lot to be done with master schedule in the spring as a high school principal, so it might be that our process moves back as a board. But I do think that that is a unique situation here where for individual children, real people, you know, we've set up some expectation. But similar to the question, we have a responsibility to the taxpayers of the district. We don't need to buy a high school. I also have a student at a small school. There are classes and things that are not able to be offered. I know we've talked about financial measures that could be done to help a school be able to offer. However, those cannot answer some of the other items that you listed as far as what's a detriment to a school that's smaller. I would like this idea. I'm not sure if it's really procedurally possible, but I agree. I think the hard decision is going to have to be made. Could a decision not be a pause, actually? Could it just be a decision for the next year that's delayed by a year to where that we know a community can understand what's going to happen for it. It can project out to the future. And but for the kids that are in 8th grade this year are the ones who get that, like the benefit of a pause. And so I don't know if that's procedurally possible with the vote that sits before us, but I just want to throw that out there that I feel like it is obvious that a school cannot be at 110, 112, 100 whatever percent and sustain the quality of education. Every bit of research over the years says school size and class size matter a lot for students. So I don't know if that formed it sort of in a question or not. Maybe more for you, Mr. President.
So I'll answer. Do you have other questions, comments? So the answer to your question is, this is one of those decisions that only we get to make. So this is not really one that we go in concert with the superintendent. Management gives us their best numbers and their best recommendation. But at the end of the day, this one is all by ourselves. One of the emails that I received, and I thought it was an excellent recommendation, I'll go ahead and mention it as well. The comment was, why don't we do this in the summertime? And I'm looking at it from a parental point of view, and once again, it would take 2 or 3 months to make that decision in the summertime, but then parents would have that full school year, even if their child was affected and going to be rezoned, to be able to take steps to address it. And I'll give you an example. What I did for my youngest, knowing the rezoning, I moved her from her Girl Scout troop to a new Girl Scout troop so that she would begin to start making at least some new friends who would be at the high school that she would be going to. So for my son, when he went over, he was one of 20 students who were caught in the tiny little sliver. So it was more challenging, but for her, I was able to pick a volleyball squad that had students that were going to Langham versus those going to Cy Falls. I could pick Girl Scouts going to Langham versus Falls. So I could take steps as a parent to mitigate the impact of changing schools. So is it possible that we could actually look at this in the summertime, the next time we have to look at rezoning?
I would just say that's a possibility, but parents do become disengaged a little bit in the summertime, so I'm not sure we'd be able to get the word out there as well.
Well, you're right. That is a
that?
drawback.
I think the practice, the timeline that we've used, the reason behind that, one is waiting until the October snapshot data is final. And so it's really just so we know we have good hard numbers about the enrollment at those campuses, and then we begin the process in November. In the past, those of you that have been involved or directly having to make those decisions, in the past, it's really been a 1-month process. And so this one did go longer. Obviously, we felt that that was important to ensure with the number of different areas that we were reviewing and recommending modifications, it extended that timeline. But whether that's right or wrong, that's some of the reasoning behind that. And then I think with this particular situation, carrying over the semester was because of our desire to lengthen the process. But we can start looking at that. We can begin the process, and probably September would probably be the earliest. At least you could have some data on the students that actually showed up in August. And as you know, we're a late school start. But we can certainly look at our timeline. It's great feedback, and I'm not trying to defend, I'm just trying to explain the reason behind the timeline that we've used.
Oh, I understand it. And merely because I have an idea doesn't mean that it's a good idea. Many of my ideas never see the light of day, and that's probably good. But I just thought it was an interesting way of looking at it. Mr. Scanlon, how much more time do you want, sir?
I'm good.
Okay. So, final questions, comments, because I'll be calling for a vote.
Sure.
Mr. Scanlon?
Over the December break, I had the opportunity to meet with the Stonegate community. And as everybody here has had an opportunity to hear comments from the community, I wanted to hear it for myself in a house in the community. So that team, and I'll use the word team, we've all heard tonight where the community is asked and reminded the district about prioritization of when we would make a decision. And we've heard it come up numerous times. We want to minimize disruption, but we also have financial responsibility to use our assets well. And so as a board, as you stated, President Jackson, we get the super fun job of making that hard decision. So I want to make sure that I state very clearly, the community is fully invested, and sometimes when we have, I want to be careful how I say this. And Principal Denton, I recognize you in the office, ma'am, or in the audience, ma'am. You do amazing work at your school. I have to acknowledge that. I have sat in her office, and I have listened to how her students come to her office. Her students are loved, respected, cherished, and you are God's gift and your heart for your kids. So, all that said, the Cypress Falls family is a family. one of the things that I want to make sure that I'm paying attention to is the weight that I provide to the voice of the community. And we have a request from the community to understand what's actually happening. So, Christy, I did some math, and I laughed at myself. I did my math, and I forgot how to interpret it, so I had to do it again. It's late. I'm looking at next year's numbers for Cy Ranch, and I looked at the delta, and I took my packet apart, so I don't know what page number I'm on. It's the 9-year projected high school percent utilization with Stonegate pause, and I'm looking at percentages. That slide.
Okay.
So when we look at Cy Ranch in 23-24, if we did nothing, we're showing 115%. And if we do the Stonegate pause, we're showing that Cy Ranch would be at, with other relief, would be at 111%, correct?
Yes, next year.
Right. Okay. One of the data points that we've heard, there's an underlying assumption of how certain parts of the community is going to flesh out. One of the gentlemen that got up to speak is actually a developer in the community that's in question in one of the I'm not going to speak to an audience member, but one of the southern parts of the attendance zone for Cy Ranch. He's actually part of the developer community, and he reported tonight on some of the numbers that he had seen and what he expects. So for all of you that don't know, we have a couple of fiduciaries on the board, and Debbie and Mr. Jackson in your past roles and past lives. So you're both well aware of the current interest rate environment and likely the recession that we're stepping into to a degree, and the uncertainty that we're looking at over the next year. So from my position, I'm examining a couple of data points. One is that we've got a community that very much is committed to a particular school, no disrespect. Principal didn't at all in any scenario. But anyway, the challenge that I have is that there's an underlying assumption regarding some of the numbers. Christy, you've done a great job showing how the PASA numbers reflected accurately today. However, I still have a question mark in my mind regarding next year or the year following, simply because there is an implicit assumption based upon the number of closings and kids moving into the district. From my perspective, if I look at that difference of 111, 115 kids, that's roughly 4% difference to Cy Ranch. And if we examine that we have 80 kids, roughly, we've heard tonight, roughly 80 kids that would be grandfathered in. And so President Jackson asked you whether or not we had factored in the grandfather. And I think you said no. Is that correct?
Well, not the sibling grandfather, but the residents already attending those schools are absolutely in our projected numbers.
Okay.
So like if there's 10 kids of the 127 projected that have siblings that could take advantage of that sibling, those 10 kids are not accounted for because we don't know who's going to select that.
Correct.
It's impossible to do that.
Got it. I understand that. I get that. So I'm adding that as an assumption, and I'm calling it exactly what it is. It's an assumption, and I'm just examining that if we had roughly 80 kids that were grandfathered in, and even if we did move to Cy Falls, that's roughly, it could be a significant number.
And I don't know where the 80, I know that was said tonight, but I don't know that number to be,
Okay.
accurate. We'd have to look at that.
Understood. At that point, I'll look at the community, and I will take an assumption for the data point that we heard based upon their context of the information that they've got.
And what I shared is, if we took the live, 372 students, all of those students, and they all attended, we're 30 off. 402 is what's projected. Okay, so we're 30 off from there. As far as how many siblings would transfer, I don't know, but live students, 372.
Got it. Okay. In my mind, I think I still have a remaining question of how the southern half of the development for the boundary zone is going to develop over the next year. I think we may see some information in the coming year that would give us better data to make a decision and help the community digest the information and make planning and preparation, as you had said earlier, President Jackson. So from my comments, I think I've answered my own question. I think I know how I'm going to vote. I think my data points that I'm listening to right now are the voice of the community, the question I have on what's going to happen over the economy of the next year and how that's going to impact development on the southern half of the district.
Having been a CFO of a public company and also private companies, as well as being a CPA and a CISA, the Texas economy and also that of Houston often marches to its own drummer. And that's because we are still heavily reliant upon the oil and gas industry. So we grow when other parts of the country do not grow. 6.5% interest rate that I talked about is still historically low. Houston Chronicle said for the average price, not Houston Chronicle, what's the newsletter that's delivered out here?
Business Journal?
No. Community Impact. The quotation in Community Impact indicated for the average price of a home out in this area across from Houston, the percentage of individuals able to buy that home had fallen from just over 50% to the mid-40s, which is still a significant number. So yes, we do know there will be some slowdown. I do not expect a catastrophic slowdown simply because we remain an oil and gas economy. Having been in oil and gas and being a CFO of oil and gas companies, I know what the slowdown there means. The collapse of the oil and gas industry across the United States destroyed the FSLIC and caused all savings and loans to become bankrupt in this country. That is not where we are. That's not where we are today. Having said that, as a politician, I always want to do anything voters want to ask me to do. However, as a CPA, I can look at these numbers, and yes, they all have assumptions. Even the numbers that our patrons gave us tonight are assumptions as well. So I am not certain that I can vote for the pause. I did ask for the pause because I wanted to see the numbers. I wanted to get the answer that I wanted to see. I did not receive the answer that would tell me that the pause was a good decision for the district. Short term, the pause might be a good decision for Stonegate, but it's a decision that would be made next year. And the only question is, would we shift from Stonegate to other subdivisions? And I don't know that we would, simply because of capacity utilization of Cy Falls and Cy Ranch. I don't know that we have other options. Stonegate is in fact moved to Cy Falls. Will they face another rezoning when the new high school is built?
Well, I guess it all depends on when the high school's built, but I don't see that part of that community being moved, in my opinion, in the next 9 years with all these projections out. It doesn't indicate a movement.
Just to add to that, Mr. Jackson, when we did the 2019 bond, we did not include High School 13. And the reason we didn't, it was a little too far out to project, and of course COVID hit, and that changed the numbers a little bit. But We have already backed up that 13th high school, if we take advantage of the capacity we have, till probably in the 30s sometime. So that's just a point that we have in our projections.
Okay, other questions, comments from other board members? Ms. Blackshear?
Just a comment, Mr. Jackson, and, you know, looking at this, and if I thought the pause was going to be the solution, but these students and these families have already experienced a lot of angst, and I would hate to think that we would prolong it, and this would be a topic next year again that would be discussed by this board, is rezoning. That's my concern. Because I think if we don't make the uncomfortable decision tonight, we're just kicking the can down the road. That's my.
Mr. Sarabia?
Christina, looking at this sheet here, it looks like even with the rezoning that may happen tonight, Cy Ranch is still going to need relief again in the coming years with its neighboring schools to the south at some point, because the percentage are just, no, you had the right one up.
That was the pause.
Yeah.
So you want the pause or the
No,
recommendation?
I was looking at it with the pause, yes, but their numbers still stay up. And so we're going to be going through this in the next year or two again, at some point, maybe.
With
No, if you
said you
take a
wanna
look at slide number 68,
the pause, yeah. Just the recommended, not the pause, right? That's what,
The recommended.
yes. With the recommended, ranch will be at 95% in the 4 years, and they remain in the 90s. They go up to 100 in 2030. Is it 2029, but they do not, they stay steady.
Am I wrong? I was looking at lakes, then
Okay.
my bad, so.
Right. And I kind of shared that southern part of the district, way south, would need to kind of we'll look at that next.
Again, okay.
President Jackson,
yes, sir.
additional comments?
Yes, sir.
Christie, I'm looking at Cy Woods. Help me interpret on this slide, help me interpret what's happening as we look at Cy Woods and the 108,
Okay.
112, et cetera.
So with the Dunham plan, the gradual increase in 4 years is projected to 343 students added to Cypress Woods. In addition to the part of, it's the west of Muskee that we're sending from Bridgeland to Woods. And so that is why, but the main reason for this is the Dunham Point developing and growing, and
Understood.
that is exactly when it goes to, I guess 26, 27 is 108%.
What would be let's look at the year 26, 27, or 27, 28. In those years when we're looking at 108, 109%, are we examining moving kids from Woods, like to Falls or to another school?
I think the Woods relief would come from the Dunham Point. And whether or not a decision is made to move forward with a bond proposal and build a 13th high school. And so that the reasoning behind zoning the students from, you remember this was driven by the AROB, of moving students from AROB Spillane to Woods, that we were creating a situation where we could keep the Dunham Point development together in that feeder system until the time came to build campuses within the Dunham Point development, and then they would move into those.
Christie, by my recollection, the Dunham Point, what was the total number of high school kids forecast in any given year to be added to the
The
district?
first year was 28. Let me get that.
Once fully populated, what would that number be? I recall a number that may be incorrect, but about 1,500 kids.
Hang on a second. I quoted 28 being the Avalon and Bridge Creek, so hold on one second. Let me look at this. Too many numbers in my head. Dunham, the first year for high school, are projected next year to have 9 students, and by October of next year, 9. And then 17 and 16, so 33, year 2.
What about
from
year
Dunham.
5? What is the high school, what are we projecting fully loaded?
Year 5
Yeah,
looks like 171 students.
okay.
Yes. For 9 through 12.
Okay. What is the expectation on the southern half of the district for Cy Park? So we had some rather large numbers that we were expecting for Cy Park.
Well, we didn't, right now, Cy Park is fine. And we didn't move Bridge Creek and Avalon to Cypress Springs. We did touch Langham. I think there's going to be a need next year to definitely investigate that area, Cy Park, Cy Springs, Cy Lakes. And
Okay.
we're going to look at that.
So effectively, we've got 2 large development areas on the north side of the district and on the south side of the district, both of which, based on whatever happens in the economy and houses closing in the next 2-3 years, may have ripple and follow-on effects for the rest of the district coming back east. Is that correct?
When I think of that, I think of going back north, but that area in this most southern part of the district, those 3, Cy Park, Cy Springs, and Cy Lakes, would be the kind of
Right.
shifting that I have in
Right.
my mind. Maybe
Correct.
even some Ridge and Langham, I don't
Right.
know. I mean,
Yeah.
it just depends on what we do,
Okay.
what we look at.
What if we did not build the new high school and tried to put that off, kind of to what you said earlier, where we were trying to shift any capacity from Dunham Point into Woods? Is there any bleed out as that population continues to grow to other high schools near Woods?
You know, after 9 or 10 years, and I don't know.
Yeah, correct.
We typically go with 5. That's what we look at for certain. And for 5 years in this plan, it looks really, really good. I mean, up on those numbers, we don't have to touch it for 7 or 8. So as far as 13, I mean, again, we still have the capacities in our buildings to accommodate the kids that we have.
Yep. Okay.
And as I shared last week, high school growth in the last 5 years is like 440 students, as opposed to about 8 or 9 years ago of 900 students.
Yep. Okay. I think I'm done, President Jackson.
Any other questions, comments?
So as I read this, Ms. Jackson, there's 2 options on the table at this point. If we were to do the pause, I'm just going to try to line this out, we'd actually relieve the school from 3,600 kids down to 3,500 kids by doing the pause, as I read this. Is that correct? Because the current enrollment right now is 3,626. Is that correct?
Because the first year, the impact would only be 127.
Right. So it actually would go down if we did the pause. Is that correct? Or no? Am I reading this wrong?
Ranch would,
So part of what the pause is, the only thing we're pausing is that part of Stonegate going to
That's
Cy
correct.
Falls.
I just want to make sure I
The
read the
first
numbers
year.
correctly. Yeah, the first year. I'm just talking about the first year only.
right.
So you would go down.
You would add 127 back to Ranch and take 127, away from Falls. So that's what the pause is.
Right. So
Right.
which then means the next year, we'd have to make the hard decision to make this change anyway, how I read this. So the
Correct.
question is, do we delay this a year, but eventually they have to make the change again next year? Those are really the 2 options I see at this point. Making sure I understand. And what is procedurally, how it's going to work?
So procedurally, I will call a vote On the management recommendation, all in favor, aye. All opposed by the same sign. We need 4 votes to carry the proposal.
Voting.
If that fails, we will then look at other proposals.
Just for my clarity,
Yes, sir.
voting for, the question is whether or not you're voting for the proposal of the pause?
No, we were voting for the management recommendation.
Got it, okay. Okay, got it.
Okay, everybody clear? I will entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the board approve the attendance boundaries as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Now, Ms. Blackshear, I need clarification as presented because we had 2 proposals presented. Do you mean by that the final recommendation of management that was presented?
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Sarabia, is that what your second was? Okay. Here is the sad time, folks. All in favor of that recommendation, please raise your right hand. All opposed? Motion carries. Holly, if you would, please so signify. Item 3K. The board will consider making a determination that good cause did not exist as required by law for Dana Beard, Kaylee Cutbirth, Christine Denman, Ashley Fletcher, Gerald Frederick, Chloe Henson, Zachary Hurst, Jillian Mitchell, Jordan Packman, and Rochelle Smith to resign their respective employment contracts. This item was discussed in closed session at the board work session on Monday, January 9th, 2023. There are no speakers this evening. May I have a motion to approve this non-consensus item as recommended or amended?
So moved.
Motion has been made. Is there a seconded?
Second.
All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Holly, the motion was unanimous. Agenda item 3L, the board will consider giving notice to Yakira Dean that her employment with the district under a probationary contract has been terminated. This item was discussed in closed session at the board work session on Monday, January 9th, 2023. There are no speakers on this topic this evening. May I have a motion to approve this non-consensus item as recommended or amended?
So moved.
Motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, I call for a vote. All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries. The next item is citizen participation portion of the agenda, and we have 12 speakers. I will call for a 5-minute break for those who wish to leave, to give them an opportunity to leave. It's 9:21. We will reconvene at 9:26.
You're right.
Oh, I knew it. I'm going to get some more tea.
missing?
Mr. Secretary, we can't start until you come up, sir. It's 9:26. Each speaker will have 2 minutes. Are you ready, Mr. Secretary? Our first speaker is let me go back and read the boilerplate again. 4A, per BED local, patrons may address the board during the regular board meeting under citizen participation on any matters of interest or concerns that are not posted agenda items. Individuals may only register to speak one time per meeting and must register in advance. Just a reminder, patrons who have registered to speak this evening may see the order of names listed on the screens to your right and to your left. Before your name is called, please move forward and sit in 1 or 2 reserved seats on the front row. The first speaker is Leslie Gilmart.
Good evening. I'm a CFISD parent and president of the former Cy-Fair Civic Alliance. Our mission is to engage, inform, and unite CFISD stakeholders. We envision a CFISD that embraces the future, prioritizes an inclusive and equitable learning environment, and supports a diverse community where every child can thrive. In just 15 months, we have awarded a scholarship to a CFISD graduate, delivered a letter and gift of appreciation to every CFISD librarian, hosted a back-to-school bash and school supply drive, facilitated the Books Under Fire book club, and continuously advocated for common sense inclusive policies in our school district. Today, our Facebook group is almost 500 members strong and growing, and we've even collected some trademark trolls along the way. In other words, we're making an impact. 2023 is the year our mission will be tested. This November, 4 CFISD school board seats are up for election. Will we end the year with a common sense pro-public education majority? Or will our beloved school district be taken over by extremists who seek to dismantle public education and impose their narrow worldview on our children? We must work together to protect CFISD's bright future. In the spirit of hope and resilience, we are rebranding just in time to kick our work into high gear. We are now Cypress Families for Public Schools. To celebrate, we're throwing a launch party on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. In honor of the holiday, we'll collect school supplies to donate to a Title I CFISD campus. As Dr. King said, the time is always right to do what is right. I hope you'll join us.
Our next speaker is Stacy DeMeyer.
Good evening. Governor Abbott issued a proclamation stating that January will officially be School Board Recognition Month. The proclamation states, quote, recognizing that our educational system is foundational to our social order, individual schools and districts are answerable to the people through elected school boards. These boards set a vision for their district based on students' needs and community values, end quote. School Board Recognition Month is a time to show our appreciation for our district's trustees. And we have some amazing trustees in CFISD that are doing the work as stated in the proclamation. These trustees care about all CFISD students as well as the values held by the diverse Cy-Fair community. Some look at the 2021 election as evidence of our community agreeing with the values held by the 3 new trustees. For instance, the newer trustees want us to think that the Cy-Fair community supports the removal of books from our school libraries, when in fact, only an extremely small number of people do. Other speakers will discuss this in more detail, but thanks to a public information request, we received copies of 41 submitted book reconsideration forms. All but 2 were submitted by the same 3 people, and half of them were submitted by trustee Lucas Scanlon's spouse. These trustees do not represent our community. They simply had their supporters come out to polls during a typical low voter turnout election. Aside from Board Recognition Month, January is also the first month of 2023, which also happens to be a CFISD school board election year. Several of us have formed a political action committee committed to supporting school board candidates that truly represent the values of Cy-Fair. We must have our community turn out to vote in November if we want our school board to represent our amazing community. To learn more about the PAC, please visit cyfairstrongschools.com. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Matthew Potter. Matthew Potter. Matthew Potter. Our next speaker is Julie Ricks.
To me, it's more about what than where. God is truth. God is not in the wicked, woke agenda that is inside Fair. God is not an indoctrination of our children to believe they are entitled victims. They are victors, fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of God. God is not in the sexualization of our children in the classroom and pornography in the library. Put Bibles in the library and teach them in the classroom. God is a God of order. God is not in the confusion of gender identity. God made male and female. God is not in racism and division in the classroom or clubs. God loves all and does not identify according to outward appearance, but looks at our heart. God is faithful, and we are not to be a Judas. We should all be shouting, "Thank you, Lord, we get to live in the most prosperous nation ever." The Constitution and the Bill of Rights, written by God-inspired patriots, make America exceptional. The woke war at its core is against God. It attempts to remove God from his rightful position of creator of all and the knowledge that everything belongs to him. Give God his rightful position in our schools by bringing back prayer, celebrate Christmas and Jesus, not Band-Aids growing a mental health program. Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord. Father, I ask that you redeem and restore education in America. I lift up the children to you and ask that you protect them and guard their hearts and minds. I ask that you teach them the fear of the Lord, which is the beginning of wisdom, so as not to be deceived. I ask that parents' hearts be toward their children and children honor their parents. I ask that you come into families and make them strong again. I ask that those promoting and profiting from the wicked woke agenda be swiftly removed and all influence be taken away.
Please
I
stop.
ask in the authority I have
Please
been
stop.
given in Jesus'
Please
name.
stop.
Amen.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ryan Lamb.
Okay, hey y'all, my name is Ryan Lamb and I am a senior at Bridgeland High School, and I'm here to share my opinion on the current push for book bans. I understand that many people, the push for the removal of books and literature from our school library comes from a place of concern for their child's well-being. Although I do not completely agree with the concept of banning books, I do understand the sentiment many parents have about the existence of mature content that is present in several books. However, I cannot in good faith support this idea when it feels so inorganic. I am sure almost everyone in this room has read the books To Kill a Mockingbird, 1984, and Fahrenheit 451. Just so everyone knows, these three books are read by basically every single student in the CFIC's district in high school English classes, yet they all have very, very mature themes, as you probably know, such as sexual themes, oppression, torture, racism, sexism, war, death, and genocide, among other things. Now, this wouldn't be a problem, except no one has formed a formal book request to get these books removed, despite the fact they are read by almost everyone. If people pushing for banning books wanted to remove them from mature content, these books would be at the top of the list among other books. However, the books that are being removed have similar concepts. The main thing that is added to them is they have gay people in them, and I don't see how that adds into the issue. So, I'll be mostly frank. I would say it's kind of saddening that people want to ban books with LGBTQ plus content in them, but honestly, it's more maddening than anything else that we've had to deal with it for so long, because it's already hard enough to find these books in libraries, as is removing them only ostracizes the kids who are ostracized by the community even more. And I really don't think that it's as faithful as people say that they want to protect all children when they're not protecting all children. Anyway, thank you for letting me speak at the school board tonight.
Our next speaker is Tana Lamb.
Say when. I don't, where's the light thing? I'm looking at her. Is there one? Oh, okay. Start. Okay. Hello, thank you, Dr. Henry and Board of Trustees for letting me speak tonight. My name is Tana Lamb. I'm a community member with 3 children attending schools in the district, and you just heard my wonderful son speak. I'm here speaking on the disrespect being shown to our Cypress-Fairbanks librarians and teachers, caused by the crazy amount of formal book challenges recently filed by only 5 people. A whopping 22 of them, actually 28 now, were filed by Lucas Scanlon's spouse. Let me quickly tell everyone what this formal book review process entails. At each school, a committee is appointed by the principal. At the very least, it will include the librarian, a member of instructional staff, and a parent serving on the CPOC committee. They will review the material in its entirety within 30 days, meet and determine whether the book will stay a part of the library collection, and present written determination. Needless to say, this is a time-consuming task. On the dais, Mr. Scanlon speaks of respecting staff and understanding how overworked they are. How can anybody believe this? You have to know how optically bad this looks. This is a trustee, someone directly involved in the livelihood and working conditions of all employees. This is causing an enormous amount of stress on these librarians and frankly all of the staff. They are intimidated, they feel threatened, and they are angry at yet another onerous time-consuming task put upon them. Our librarians are owed an apology, seriously. And just so everyone knows, these book reviews can be pushed up the chain until they get to the board level to make the final determination. So we could have Trustee Scanlon voting on the books his wife disapproves of. How is that not a conflict of interest? These agenda-filled challenges are a slap in the face to our educators, the ones that bust their butts to educate and care for our kids. This insanity needs to stop. And lastly, I would like to request the district be more transparent and put online all formal requests, which include the book, the school, and the person requesting. We should not have to file public information requests to get access to this information, especially since the vast majority are not filed in good faith. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Tara Cummings.
An extremist minority has screeched about pornography and parents' rights and successfully demanded a new book policy, which has already resulted in thousands of hours of additional work for overburdened staff. Extremist antics continue, spearheaded by Bethany Scanlon. According to a Public Information Act request, 41 reconsideration requests were submitted over the past year. 39 of them were submitted by 5 extremists just after Ms. Scanlon's recent book banning meeting. She submitted 22 of them to every single high school and a middle school. And she just posted on social media that she has since filed an additional 6 at the secondary level. Now, Ms. Scanlon does not have a secondary student, so I'm not sure how any of these books are relevant to her child or her parental rights. Ms. Scanlon is a self-published author, and in one of her books, she describes homosexuality as a choice and a demonic spirit. The books that Ms. Scanlon included all involve queer characters or themes. I mean, what a coinky-dink. This is not about obscenity, y'all, nor is it about parents' rights. It's about extremism. Mrs. Scanlon and her friends want to impose their bigotry on our children. They aim to violate our parental rights to determine what our kids read. This is all coming from a literal handful of extremists. They don't represent CFISD in number or in values, but their actions are immeasurably harmful. They carelessly pile even more work onto staff. They vilify our queer students and sow division in our community. They undermine the work of our district and distract from real issues. And their actions fly in the face of their own pet cause, parents' rights. Extremists with frivolous claims and harmful intentions should grow up and knock it off. Mr. Scanlon, let me remind you, you serve CFISD, not your family's bigotry. Get your house in order.
Our next speaker is Alexei Swirsky.
You missed Chris.
Oh, I'm sorry. Our next speaker is Chris Swikehart.
Hello,
Hello, I'm Chris Schweikart. On December 7th, I attended a book banning meeting hosted by Bethany Scanlon, wife of trustee Lucas Scanlon, and her group, Conservative CFISD. The intention of this group is to crowdsource book challenges. A member of the CLC was there with her laptop, teaching the group how to search the district for specific titles and which school they are available. My daughter and I recorded the meeting. I did some research on the handouts Bethany shared. I took a closer look at the website booklook.org. I found the literal playbook Bethany and her group are using to oppose books. The playbook has a plan of action and a how-to for book challenges. This website includes book names and author, along with a summary of the books in annotated page numbers, what they consider questionable content. Bethany's handouts from the .org website make completing the challenge forms quick and easy without actually reading the books. As you know, the challenge form asks if you have read the book in its entirety. AFB Local allows for parent choice when it comes to books in school. This policy was voted on unanimously by the board. Why then is Bethany Scanlon, the wife of trustee who voted yes to this policy, trying to undermine parental rights? Thank you.
The next speaker is Alexei Swirsky.
When I signed up to speak today, I read the following information. Advice to speakers: the board does not condone the use of language that may be considered vulgar, profane, obscene, offensive, or inappropriate for minors, but recognizes that some of this language may be protected speech. In order to effectively apprise the audience, please indicate below if your contents may include language that would be considered vulgar, profane, offensive, obscene, or inappropriate for minors. While Cypher ISD libraries have material in them that is pornographic and considered vulgar, profane, obscene, offensive, and inappropriate for minors, but yet we're warned not to speak about it, not to use any terms like that cover those offenses at the meeting, which I don't intend to. So why are such books okay for children to read, but not okay for a board meeting? The purpose of schools is to teach language arts, math, science, and history. Schools are not the child's parents. Pornographic books should be removed from Cypher ISD classrooms and libraries ASAP. If that doesn't happen, whoever ordered the books and placed them in the library should be arrested on charges related to providing pornography to minors. And I have read To Kill a Mockingbird, and there's no graphic description of sex in that book, which is what constitutes pornography. It is not right for schools to substitute their judgment for that of parents and provide children with pornographic books. Any employees or board members who have done so should not be working with children. Protecting children from pornography is not censorship. It is not extremism. It is being moral and responsible. And I have not worked with Bethany Scanlon, but from what I've heard, she deserves a medal for standing up for the children in ISD and trying to protect their childhood so they can grow up to be responsible, moral people. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Garth Clark.
Well, my name is Garth Clark. I'm an internal medicine physician. I'm also the parent of 3 students here at Cypher ISD, and that includes Landon Clark. Landon Clark has been on your distinguished honor roll for much of the last 3 years. He's in the top 3%. He won an award called Mr. Kindness Award a few years ago, and he also won another award called No Place for Hate, I think, which was given out monthly, and then he had the annual end of the year award at Thornton. I would think this is the type of student that you'd want in your school district. He gets up at 4 in the morning with me. I don't know too many parents that can say that. They have to go shake their kids awake. And he's never had any disciplinary problems. And he actually likes school. I used to like school. My mother died a few years ago of heart failure and obesity. My wife's mother died also of obesity. When they took her to the hospital, they couldn't put her in the CT scanner because she was too big. and that partly led to her death. Unfortunately, now my wife, which is Landon's mother, is heading down the same path that both my mother and her mother went down. I've had trouble with keeping my weight. You wouldn't think it looking at me now, but I have to work out every day. I carry this with me. You can tell it's pretty beat up. I carry it with me and I weigh everything that I eat. I have to. If you've ever been to McDonald's, sometimes the fries are 130 grams, sometimes they're 180. You just have to weigh things. Well, my son started gaining weight. He started carrying one of these. He started carrying one of these 3 years ago with him. He weighs his food just like I do. He copies me. Unfortunately now, Cy-Fair Independent School District is using the fact that my son carries a scale as a reason to label him.
Please wrap up.
Okay, to label him as a drug dealer. I would like to please have your help. He's not a danger to the school or
Please
your
stop.
students. Okay,
Please stop.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Christy McCarthy.
Hi, I'm Christy McCarthy. I'm an employee of CFISD as well as a mom of students who attend CFISD schools. But tonight I'm not coming to you as a parent or as an employee of the district. Tonight I am coming to you as a member of the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo's Houston Metro Go Texan Cypress-Fairbanks Subcommittee. Try saying that 3 times fast. I'm going to call it HMGT Cy-Fair from here on out. So what HMGT as a whole does is we raise money for scholarships for our local high school seniors. All the money that HMGT raises goes into the HLSR Education Fund, which awards both academic and agricultural scholarships. In May of 2022, HLSR awarded $780,000 to CFISD seniors. How we do this, how our committee does this, is we host events that range from dances to game nights where we sell tickets and we get items donated that we then auction off. This month, I'm back up. By far our biggest is our cook-off. It's occurring this month, January 27th and 28th at Traders Village. I would love to extend a formal invitation to the board as well as any member watching online or in person to come out and join us. Our cook teams will be slinging everything from briskets to Bloody Marys, as well as our youngest cookers in our junior Q division and can show you guys what they're made of. Mr. Henry, I would love it if you would come join us as a celebrity judge either Friday or Saturday. If you would like more information, you can reach out to us via email at metrogotexanscifair@gmail.com. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you out there.
Our next and last speaker is Melissa Rowell.
Dr. Henry, Mr. President, and board members, Happy New Year. And I want to say thank you for all the hours that you put in and the service that you give to CFISD. I know it's a lot of work, probably like a full-time job. I had something to talk about, but right before the meeting started, a board member answered my question that I had proposed, so I'm not going to talk about that. I am going to talk about something else. Regarding the books, I have seen these books. I've held some of them in my hand. I've seen the content in these books that they're referring to. It is nasty. There's a lot of pornographic material in some of these books that have been referred to. It's very inappropriate and it makes me sick. I would not want my kids to have seen this, and I would not myself would wanted to see this in the schools. You know, if parents want their kids to have access to these books with this ugly material, then they can buy the books themselves. They do not need to be in the school libraries. And I don't appreciate, them calling names like extremist. Just because we don't want pornographic books in the schools for the future of our America to be reading, it doesn't mean that we're extremists. You can have those books at home and not in the school library. Thank you.
Here are the magic words. Before we adjourn, I would like to thank everyone for being here tonight. I would also like to thank those who are watching from home. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion's been, I'm sorry? There's nothing else on my agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. It is unanimous.
All I need is invitations to eat.